first item on our agenda, or is the agenda, adoption of the agenda, if there's any additions or deletions. Reordering?
I have one additional information item. It is the COVID-19 status with the city of Lacombe.
You want to do that right away?
I think we could add that to the information.
You don't know where to go. Timing?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bellson. Maybe now is the time.
Okay, we'll, any other additions or deletions to the agenda? So we're adding COVID-19 update right at the start. Councillor Connick?
Also move we adopt the agenda as amended.
Thank you. Any other comments? All in favor? Thank you, that's unanimous. Now we'll have the COVID update.
Thank you. This afternoon, Director Pichet, Mayor Creasy and I virtually met with Dr. Hinshaw and administrative personnel from the Ministry of Health Central Zone. They advised us that Lacombe has, as of today, entered a COVID status of being on the watch list because there was an increase over the weekend from 5 active cases to 10 active cases. This takes us into the watch threshold, which is a minimum of 10 active cases and a minimum of 50 cases per 100,000, both of which we now have reached. Of these 10 cases, 9 of the 10 are under 40, 1 of the 10 is over 40, 3 are under 20, and 6 are between 20 and 40. We have previously identified a trigger of 5 cases within the community of Lacombe to reactivate the Emergency Coordination Center team. And so we'd already had that in place as well. You have seen that over the weekend we put our messaging, community messaging signs back up in place and had some messages prepared, which will be released over the next couple of days to make sure the community is aware that we've reached that watch status and that it is a time of heightened vigilance as we move through the second wave. Of course, this is by far the most active cases the city of Lacombe has had at one given time since the beginning of the pandemic. And so we'll be encouraging people to take whatever precautions they can to limit the spread in our community.
Thank you, CAO Dowdy. Any questions for our CAO regarding COVID? Councillor Ross?
So worst case scenario, what is, once it meets that maximum threshold, how is that going to affect the city of Lacombe since we're meet that number?
So it isn't a specific, there's no additional triggers or measures imposed by the provincial government. There are a number of communities that have reached the watch list. I think it's important to remember that in a community of our size, a relatively low number of cases can hit that target of the watch list. And so Dr. Hinshaw stressed to us several times that it isn't necessarily a cause for additional action. It's something they've seen in many other communities, and it could revert quite quickly. But of course, our fear is that it continues to escalate. We did ask about additional triggers, if there was additional thresholds that once met would trigger additional actions, and they didn't identify any.
I have a question for you, CEO Gowdy, regarding the further measures. For example, a mask bylaw. We need to, if we brought forward a notice of motion tonight, we'd be looking at least 2 weeks before that would come into play anyway. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So if we did a notice of motion tonight to bring that forward for us to look at in a couple of weeks, we would be in a position where we would know what's happening with this current outbreak, whether it got worse or better, and give us a chance to react to it. Is that right?
Yes, you could. I don't want you to think, though, that the notice of motion is your only recourse. Should you choose that this is an item of sufficient urgency that you'd like to convene a special meeting to discuss face covering bylaw or additional actions, other actions, we certainly can help with that and could schedule it ahead of your next meeting, which is scheduled for October 26th.
Was there any indication from that meeting that you attended, that Grant wants to speak to, any information regarding that type of action from health?
No, they did not have any recommendations for additional action. We asked specifically about escalating action, including the declaration of a state of local emergency. And they're quite clear that that remains the decision of the local authority. Administratively, at this time, I have no recommendation to engage a state of local emergency. And there's no indication that there is a urgent or acute risk to Lacombe residents of community transmission. That was not indicated by the province. They did not have any data to support that.
Mayor Creasy, you wanted to say something?
Thanks, Chair. One thing I just did want to add, that when we were speaking with Dr. Hinshaw today, in addition to the things that Chief Gowdy went through, Dr. Hinshaw had suggested that there's been a noticeable difference in how calls are received from Alberta healthcare workers doing their very necessary duty of tracing outbreak and that kind of thing. So I'd just like to remind everybody in the community, when you get a call from AHS regarding that type of situation, to please be respectful and know that it's in the public best interest for them to be cooperative and fully disclose the information. That was just something that she kind of stressed and wanted to make sure that the citizens realized.
Thank you. Anything further from anybody? No? Thank you very much for that update. Appreciate that. And we'll move to our regular agenda. Now that you've lost 10 minutes of your time, you'll be able to do it in 10 minutes, I'm sure. Perfect, good. So I'd like to welcome representatives from the Lacombe Performing Arts Center Foundation. Would you please introduce yourselves? I'm sure everybody here knows who you are, but.
I'm Rosanna Karakis, Executive Director of LPAC.
And I'm Grant Harker, the current president of Lacombe Performing Arts Foundation.
Thank you very much. And I turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. So as we enter our second year of ownership and third year of operating as a facility, our profile in Lacombe and Lacombe County has become stronger as we continue to offer a variety of programming that can serve the community as a whole, and expanding our amenities while working with like-minded individuals and organizations. We are creating a creative hub for arts and cultural activities. Into our bookings, our current space available for bookings include the Shunda Theatre, Nalco Home Hardware Fireside Room, and the Art Room. In addition, new office space has recently become available, which we are turning into a music room. This room will offer a venue that is ready for music teachers to use on a regular basis, creating an opportunity for music lessons within our facility. The majority of our bookings are long-term rentals, and those consist of 2 dance companies, a homeschool children's theater group, and an RDC art student who is renting the art room as her personal studio while RDC holds classes virtually. As in the past, our basement area is rented by Mother Goose Play School. They have been an intricate part of Lacombe and our facility for many years. For our programming, the Lacombe Performing Arts Center continues to do community programming, which brings barrier-free entertainment and cultural activities to the region. Although we were unable to do Music in the Park 2020, we did partner with Lacombe Tourism to do the special performances for Canada Day, bringing entertainment directly to everybody's doorstep. As well, we're excited to bring back Lacombe's Got Talent this year, again in partnership with Lacombe Tourism, as part of the Culture and Harvest Fest. It looks a little bit different than it has in the past, but it's brought in a wide range of talented contestants and garnered great community support. Although our spring programming was cut short, a lot of excitement has been generated around our fall programming. We are producing our second season of the Youth Theater with Cal Patty Theatre Company. This theater group consists of youth from 7 to 17 years and runs October to February. We've expanded our programming partnership with Anna Marie of Calpatti Theatre, and we're offering a women's comedy sketch class from November to March. Currently, we're focused on programming smaller workshops and classes this fall to adhere to COVID restrictions. We've offered a wool felting class, watercolor workshops, and are continuing to build our programs with knitting workshops. Soon we'll be bringing back our writing workshop, Brave New Writing, that had started at the beginning of 2020 before it was having to shut down. The exhibition space at Lacombe Performing Arts Center is showing different artists and exhibits every 6 to 8 weeks. It expanded from our art wall to include 3 display cases for 3-dimensional work. Unfortunately, concerts haven't been scheduled as we've been focusing on smaller programming until we have a better idea of how comfortable the community is. And we want to prepare a safe space for everyone as well. We're looking forward to offering concerts to the community soon, fulfilling that part of our mandate again. Growing as a performing arts center, working with community individuals and organizations, we're gradually creating a hub for arts and cultural activities. We do not seek to compete with other community amenities and faculty facilities, but serve a niche that fulfills our mandate. As we are a smaller venue and sometimes cannot always fulfill the requirements of larger events and activities, we feel it's important to work closely with other spaces to make sure the community needs are met. Although a large part of our focus has turned inwards towards the facility, we are committed to continuing our presence in the community as well, with new artistic and interactive opportunities for the public, making arts and culture a fixture in everyday life. The Lacombe Performing Arts Center strives to succeed for the betterment and enrichment of the city of Lacombe and the surrounding communities, focusing on becoming a cultural hub and continuing a program that is accessible to everyone. Our budget should be attached. There are a few notes to make about our budget planning this year. We do not have concerts included in our budget until we know that we can plan them safely. However, our concert series is more about providing programming as part of our mandate and not about the profit. Our concerts often break even and do not impact our budget, profit or losses to a great extent. Our Red Deer Foundation account is earmarked for facility costs. Like all responsible building owners, we must have a contingency fund for any repairs or maintenance that might come our way in the future. The budget that we're putting forward is a conservative estimate of our costs for 2021. This year, we're requesting the same amount of funding from the city of Lacombe as last year, as we know it'll be a challenging year for everyone. Our request is for $26,000 to support the operation of the Lacombe Performing Arts Center for 2021. Thank you for your support.
Thank you very much for that. I'd just like to say that the music in the park, losing that for this summer has been a huge loss to our community. And it was a great place for everybody to meet on Wednesdays and enjoy that program. And I just think that was one of the saddest things that's happened in our community regarding COVID. Any questions or for our contingency here? No, everybody's happy. Yeah, I think so. Thank you very much for the presentation, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
I would just like to add one thing about the budget, because I asked the question of Helen, our treasurer, because I don't do the fee accounting. I asked her, how come we have so much cash in the bank? Because it does look like we're flush with cash, but then she explained to me that outstanding, we're not done the year yet. We're not done the calendar year. And most of that money is already earmarked and it's already spent. So when you look at the budget numbers and you see that we've got cash in the bank, don't think that it's your ongoing support isn't necessary.
For instance, we had to postpone some of our payments, such as the grand piano that we purchased. We were allowed to postpone that until we were up and running again to make further payments on that. So there's different accounts like that. Lots of support.
Good. Thank you.
I'd also like to add that if you're not a member of the Lacombe Performing Arts Center, you're eligible to become members for a nominal fee of $20 a year.
Lucky you.
And that'll keep you informed and abreast of all the ongoings at the theater. And really, I think you could probably expense that through your council's business. Or maybe not, I'm not sure.
Cutbacks.
But we are excited. I don't want to deliberate too much longer. I know we're short. It was a challenging spring. We actually laid Roseanne off for a little while because of COVID. Music in the Park was a tragedy because all the work was done. We were all ready to go. All the acts were booked and everything was ready to go. The printing was paid for and everything. And then we pulled the plug month by month as we went along. And it was sorely missed. We will be able to do it next year. We just need to figure out some social distancing methods in that space so that we can limit the number of people and try and keep them apart from one another and screen the acts off, some of the performers from the audience somehow so that we can carry that forward because Councillor Dulles and I agree it was one thing that was really missed within the community.
Well, let's hope that next summer you don't have to worry about social distancing. Yes, Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Councillor Golson. I'll bite. How do I become a member?
If you email Rosanna, she'll be sure to put you on the list.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
I don't
much.
have her email address. We have a website.
Do you even know our website or was that? LaCombeTac.com.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rosanna.
I don't know beans and websites.
We'll see you later, Rosanna.
Yeah, we'll see you at the end of this.
Thank you very much.
What's that?
Can we let it go live? So-
I don't think we can do that.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay, next up is the Lacombe District Historical Society. Hopefully they're there.
This table arrow through the. Oh, I'm sorry. I want to make it farther away from you. Then I don't get hit by you at least. I did for me already.
Well, thank you for coming out, Coleman District Historical Society, and would you please introduce yourselves?
Yes, hi, I'm Melissa, I'm the Executive Director. This is Debbie, she's our Vice President.
Thank you, go ahead.
I think you all have a copy of the slideshow presentation and then also the report as well. So, first of all, thank you for having us here today. If you want to flip to the second page of our slideshow, we have our core values and our vision statement. So when we just redid our vision statement actually last year. And when we look at this, the words that kind of jump out to me are relevant, integrated, community, value, and services. So our goal has always been from the beginning to inspire the community through the rich and diverse history of the region, while empowering them to learn more about themselves, their community, and humankind on a larger scale. 2020 highlighted just how important community is to all of us, I think, from large scale events and festivals, of course, but also to the smaller everyday moments where we're able to connect with one another. Our museums in Lacombe are much more than just two old buildings where forgotten items go to live out their final days. We have the ability as museums to be an anchor in a storm. So we have the ability to create unity and bring communities together by celebrating a sense of place and collective heritage. So how 2020 impacted us this year, obviously it impacted everyone, but we went from having leaks on the roof of the Blacksmith Shop Museum to both of our furnaces at the Michener House breaking down. It also meant that we closed the Michener House Museum and we had layoffs of our part-time staff members when COVID first hit. On the third slide, you'll see we had canceling of all of our public events, including the Liberation of Holland reception, our annual Easter egg scavenger hunt, the Heritage Fashion Show High Tea fundraiser, Canada Day, Lacombe Day, and Open Farm Day festivals, our Taste of the Past festival, 5 intro blacksmithing workshops, and our fiber market. It also meant canceling all of our programming, which was our senior outreach wellness program pilot we were launching, supposed to be on March 17th. Our school tours all throughout May and June were canceled. Our weekly spring and fall drop-in programming, weekly art in the garden programming, and our weekly skills for homesteaders. So we saw these as opportunities to rise to a new challenge. In March, we hosted our AGM, and actually the very next day, everyone was shut down and working from home. So we started immediately restructuring what our program was going to look like. So this went from, in April, we created brand new 360-degree virtual tours of our museum's interiors. We also made our walking tours available online for the heritage buildings and the mural tours. And we launched a new fundraiser with the Oodles of Chocolate Company in town about the heritage mural chocolate bars. And we hosted an online tutorial for traditional Easter egg decorating. In May, we went back to the office to work and conducted maintenance to our heritage buildings, including the Michener House Museum porch and the grounds, which were in much need of love. They hadn't been worked on for about 10 years. And then we also were able to partner with local company Hangar Development, and they, with a local family in Gull Lake, built us a custom welcome desk inside the Blacksmith Shop Museum. We received our renewed accreditation from the Alberta Museums Association, which is valid until 2025. And we started an emergency archival project to prevent mold growth and deterioration on some important negatives in our collection. And there's a couple sample photos in there that show about 20% of them that we found were pretty much past saving at this point. We started a new virtual way for the public to interact with our collections called Artifact Friday. And we also launched Remembering Holland Stories of Lacombe, which was a virtual version of our exhibit, interviewing a local member of our community who actually lived in Holland during the Liberation. We partnered with Wolf Botanical for our Heritage Garden and their 35th anniversary celebrations. And we started weekly crafts at the Michener House and Skills for Homesteaders virtual programming. In June, we were able to rehire our part-time staff and 3 members as summer students to the Government of Canada. In July, we reopened to the public with our new scheduled tour options available. We completed stage 1 of a much needed artifact cataloging project at the Blacksmith Shop Museum. You can kind of see a before and after there. It was pretty much just tables full of pieces of metal, and now it's actually organized and almost cataloged. We secured a spot at the Lacombe Farmers Market to interact with the public on a weekly basis, supplying free history activity books and heritage-themed craft kits. We were also nominated for the 2020 Governor General's Award in History in Canada and for the Lacombe District Chamber of Commerce Nonprofit of the Year Award. We toured the county interviewing other communities and museums for our 75th commemoration of the end of the Second World War. And we've spent countless hours researching, videoing, and editing our new weekly virtual programs. In August, we welcomed the Premier of Alberta on a private tour of both of our facilities, and we assisted the City of Lacombe with the cemetery monument cleaning and inventory events. We created new outreach kits for senior facilities and homeschool groups and special interest groups. And after a very short 7.5 weeks, we said goodbye to our summer students. Normally we have them for over 16 weeks. In September, we launched our new exhibit, At Home and Abroad, Stories of Lacombe, which was a commemoration of the 75th anniversary of the end of the Second World War. And it highlighted stories both in video and picture and text from across the county. We fostered a new partnership with Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Lacombe for an upcoming exhibit with the youth in their program. And we've reopened both sites for the Culture and Harvest Festival at the end of September, with multiple guided walking tours of the downtown heritage buildings and murals available. And just this month, we received a 26-week internship, and as of yesterday, 2 short-term employment opportunities for youth in the Lacombe region to work with us in our archival reorganization project. So our program services and changes upcoming for the new year. Well, our strategic plan actually ends in 2021. So we'll be working this winter on our new plan, which is going to, I believe, involve a lot more digital than we probably had expected 5 years ago. And we will continue to be maintaining the best practices in museum standards as per our accreditation with the Alberta Museums Association. And we'll be fostering and mentoring new museum professionals, hiring and working on our volunteer and hiring retention policy, to which we've actually received a grant from the Volunteer Alberta organization to work on. We have a new membership incentive program we are going to be working on, and obviously maintaining our accessibility for members of the community with regular hours, virtual exhibits, and our barrier-free access. Next year is actually our 50th anniversary, so we have a few things in mind that we're hoping to be able to celebrate with the community, and partnering with more like-minded organizations for a sustainable future. Due to the funding cuts, we understand and appreciate the position that the City of Lacombe and you as council members are in. So at this time, the Historical Society is not asking for an increase to our funding, and instead we are asking for the city to match their 2020 contributions of $48,000 to our 2021 operating budget. And that is it. So we'd like to thank you for taking the time to have us in, and if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Thank you, Melissa. I have a couple of questions. The self-guided tours that were online, how did that go over?
So we don't have a way to track how many downloads, unfortunately, on our website, because it's just a PDF that you can click. It would have been nice to see if you could see how many people.
It would have been really nice to know how many people were taking advantage of that, because a lot of work and certainly a lot of advertising and would have gone into that, the promotional things, I would think.
Yes, so we print them every year and update them every year. And we have them located, used to be at the visitor center, the Flatiron, and then both museums outside, and people can take them by the mailboxes.
I'm thinking online,
Yeah.
the online ones.
Yes.
So you had those guided tours online, and people were able to look at that and look at the facilities without leaving their home, obviously.
Yes.
But you don't know how many people.
We don't have a count of that, unfortunately.
Also, your chocolate bars, are they available only at one location?
So you can order them online through Oodles. And we've had them at all of our, so the market every Friday, we had them there. And then we only really did the one event this year, the Culture and Harvest Festival, so we had them available there. But anytime the museums were open for private tours this summer, which was Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, they were available in our little welcome destinations for sale. I believe Cilantro and Chive purchased about $1,000 worth when we first started, and they were selling it on their online menu as a dessert item. So it was a pretty good fundraiser for us for just creating the labels of them.
Are you going to continue on with that?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions for our guests?
I've encouraged the council to go onto Facebook too and check out the hard work that Melissa and the other staff and volunteers have put into the presentations that they put on. And you can actually tell there, it does show you how many people have viewed the little blurbs on Facebook. I find that where I find it's easier than popping into the museum's website sometimes, you know, just seeing it there, and takes 5-6 minutes to watch it, and it's really quite interesting.
Great, thank you.
Our Artifact Fridays have been very popular, so we're hoping to keep them going, but that was a full-time job for a summer student, so it's quite a bit of work to video, edit, upload, all of that, so we'll see.
Great, thank you very much. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to the next presentation.
Easy.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Hello and welcome.
Hello.
And this is Lacombe Regional Tourism. And if you could introduce yourselves, that'd be great.
Sure, Angel Hand, Wendy Butter.
Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, once again, we had a very successful year considering the challenges that we were faced with. Even through COVID, we worked from our home offices.
Could you speak up just a little bit, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
So we all worked, from our home offices, sharing everything that was still relevant to the community, businesses that were open and running. And we also had some fun scavenger hunts and things like that people could do online once things started to open up a little bit. So there was some community activities to do. We went back into the office mid-May, and we had even about 800 visitors to Flatiron over the past year. And it's a little over half, but considering there was no international travelers and even provincially there wasn't a whole lot, we still had a lot of day trippers, tons of people coming to Lacombe. The one theme that stuck out a lot to us was people loved coming here because it felt like normal. They didn't have to wear masks if they didn't want to, and it was kind of interesting that that was the main theme that they said when they came in, that it was like a breath of fresh air and kind of felt normal. So they were enjoying their visit, and we had a lot of day trippers from Edmonton and Calgary, as far east as Nova Scotia, and still quite a few from BC. So yeah, that was always kind of nice. We still managed to keep all of our festivals that we coordinate going in some way, shape or form. Canada Day was a bit of a challenge, but we decided to do some roving musical entertainment that went through all the communities. We also did Canada Day cake for a lot of the seniors' facilities, so they could have coffee and cake and still enjoy some festivities. We had some really great remarks from people. I think there was only one person that said we missed their street, but we tried really hard to make sure we went through the whole community. Let's see here, Culture and Harvest Festival just went, actually it's still going. National Culture Days goes until the end of the month. We did manage to do some in-person events out at the Ag Grounds that were been very well received. Lots of people went out. And for the first time, we did a lot of online events. So we've had 11 videos so far. We have another 4 to go till the end of the month. And they were a combination of cultural cooking and arts and crafts. to which we did up kits that people could pick up and take home and follow along with the video. With the videos and such this year, it was actually really nice because we managed to make some neat connections with different businesses. And even with the videos that we did, we have now a YouTube channel. So these businesses that participated in the festival can still sell kits and do interactive stuff and refer back to our videos. So they'll keep some connections going that way. And we'll also be able to utilize them in future festivals as well. So yeah, we've been busy because typically we have a year to plan all kinds of stuff. And this year it was a 6 to 8 week planning period because we didn't know what we were going to get for grants and funding kind of till the 11th hour. But we're very proud that we managed to keep everything rolling as best we could and still do some fun stuff. We're still working hard. Like I said, we do a lot of our social media stuff all the time, and we are very active. Our numbers for our online stuff for the culture days was huge. Actually, twice what we thought it would be. So we're very pleased. National Culture Days has been sharing a lot of our stuff and using a lot of our videos as examples. So yes, we're very pleased. We were number 3 last year for Best Festival in Canada in our under 50,000. So we're hoping at least to have that this year, maybe even inch up the ladder a bit. So we're excited. We'll let you know what we come in at. Our Facebook and Twitter is always constantly growing. So we're very pleased, but it's a big part and a big time, a chunk of our time that we invest in doing that. We also this year had just bought a little drone. We're kind of inspired by it. We had Randy Rich Films do a mural video of the community. We had mentioned to Public Works we were going to do it, and they were awesome because the city looked absolutely sparkling, spotless. It's a beautiful video. If you haven't seen it, go on and check it out. We had a huge amount of views on that, but it was really nice. So we bought ourselves a little drone, and we're starting to use it for some of our marketing things for ourselves and our municipal partners as well. And we're trying to steer that way a little bit more. Being that we are trying to up our marketing, we're realizing that we need a bit more gear that is sufficient for doing that. Our desktops in the office don't always have the capabilities to do all the video and stuff that we're hoping to do more of. So that's one thing that we're kind of working towards upgrading a bit in the coming years, but we've done a lot with what we've got so far, and it's been very well received. Let's see here. For the most part, we did our presentations to yourselves and the county earlier in the year about our desire to have a mobile tourism unit. It was all based on getting a new vehicle, and we realized that with COVID and all the other challenges that just was not going to be feasible for right away. But we've managed with a community partner to get a small use van, and we have it in our budget reserves to get it all wrapped and ready and insured, and we're going to try and do some different festivals and markets next year. With that, we're also going to stay in the Flatiron until the end of our lease. So we'll still be challenged with the hours of trying to keep that storefront open all the time as best we can. We might not be able to be totally 7 days a week if we're out doing festivals and other things, but we're going to really try to make it work so that we can showcase what the band can do and still kind of maintain our operations. We have been working still with the Central Alberta Tourism Alliance. Each year the focus is different. Last year we worked on a master trails plan, And it was kind of nice because it will be a guide to all the trails in the region, and then also recommendations for some new tourism trails to be maybe built in the future. This year, we're going to do more of a marketing, upping the website and doing more promotion on the different regions. We're still working with our partners at Strong Coffee to determine how that will all look and where the focus will be, because there's a lot of municipalities, so that'll kind of be a general for everybody. But with COVID, it's been a little bit slow in getting things going for this year right off the bat, but they do have plans in place. We are not asking for any increase in our funding this year outside of the 0.8% that was recommended in the letter. Yeah, we're still just trying to basically make do, because we know that it's a challenging year. And we're just very pleased that we can keep growing and bringing more to the community as we can with the time and resources that we have.
Well, thank you very much. And I think there's a lot of people out there that probably didn't realize you had your fingers into so many pies or pots. And you certainly do a lot of work in our community that's greatly appreciated. There's no doubt about that. I have one question regarding your van and the operation of it. For example, at our farmer's market, you'd be there every Friday then? Is that correct?
We'll try to do that. We're kind of wanting to get more of the outside of the people. I mean, we're going to be probably at the farmer's market in Bentley, where there's a lot of tourists. We're trying to bring people into the community. And I mean, of course, it makes sense to have it at our farmer's market, and we might be rotating maybe a couple times a month. Again, it's a timing thing on if we have staff to be out of the office for that. But yeah, I mean, farmers markets, festivals, like the different municipalities all have their fairs and different days, and we need to be out there also showing them their investment in tourism, because sometimes they feel like we're a little too Lacombe focused. So we're trying to spread it out a little bit, and we think that the mobile tourism unit will be good for that. We'd like to get out to Edmonton and Calgary for a couple of different things, and even Rocky Mountain House. So we want to bring people into the community. And I mean, it's going to be a lovely little billboard, I guess you can say, of Lacombe, and we're hoping that it gets the attention. And yeah, so we'll be a little bit everywhere.
Well, I think it's a great idea to get out there and do that. And certainly the farmers markets, we experienced it this year. There's a lot of people from out of town at our farmers markets, so
Yes,
it'd be a great spot for that.
Yeah.
Councillor Ross, you had a question?
Thank you, Councillor Gobson. So being on this board, I think in fairness, the van will represent the region being the entire county. I think the county has expressed an interest in fairness with their investment. So I think that is a direction moving forward. I guess the question I have to get, I apologize, when's the lease up on the Flatiron building again?
December 2021.
Right, okay, cool.
Councillor Hoopstra?
Thank you, Councillor Goldson. You were mentioning the master trail plan. Is it done, did you say?
It's actually just about finished. I think they are trying to decide if they're going to print them. Everybody here will get a copy of the digital.
Okay.
One, I'll have it sent for you guys to look at.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Thank you very much for your presentation. The work you do is great, and I think it's very important that we stay on top of tourism, as it generates a lot of interest in our community.
Yeah, like I said, we just have our fingers here right in a lot of pies. So
Yes.
we try to make sure that we're doing enough, like doing quality as well as things, but we're just very proud of how far we've grown in the past few years. And
Well, thank you very much, and look forward to seeing the new van.
yes. Thank you so much.
Flying Club is not here yet, so we're gonna.
Rosanna is there?
Is that
Yeah.
possible?
If Rosanna can come in.
Yep, we've got it right here.
Who said all of this would be on top of that?
What time? Are we at?
We're ahead. You're back.
Hi.
So we'll make a slight change to our program. We'll bring Roseanne back in to do the Lacombe Days Committee, and Flying Club, when they show up, will come after. So thanks, Rosanna, and I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. Sorry. Just to go over 2020, although much didn't happen. Unfortunately, we're not able to plan Lacombe Days with our traditional events this year. The Lacombe Days Planning Committee tried to maintain a presence and raise spirits during times where we weren't able to celebrate and connect as a community. This year, our board has diminished to 3 members.
3,
Council appointed.
2.
Council appointed Councillor Gullickson, Councillor Ross, and myself.
Oh, that's right.
So, who's still stuck with us. We will be continually seeking out board members for growth as a community, to bring in fresh eyes, new ideas, and passion for our community. So for 2020, we did do a drive-in movie. As with everything this summer, the drive-in movie proved to be difficult to coordinate with COVID. Licensing was difficult to get because the companies are being protective of the theaters with all the pop-ups coming out. We were able to finally move forward with the event. We had about 80 vehicles and 200 people came to watch the movie. All those door proceeds went to DEPA, Dancers Edge Community Association, who helped run the event as a fundraiser. We sponsored the Gord Bamford Drive-In Concert Series. The Lacombe Days Committee saw us sponsoring it as another opportunity to have presence in Lacombe this year and being able to contribute to an event that uplifts and brings celebration to the community. For our 2021 budget, as we work towards planning of 2021, we're planning optimistically that we can keep many of the traditional and newer events that we began bringing in 2019, bringing as much celebration and value to the community and visitors. We're looking forward to building on the partnerships that we have created in the past with Centerfest, the Lacombe Bolorama, and the many community organizations that pull together to create events and celebrations for the Lacombe Days Festival. The Lacombe Days Committee is requesting $18,000 for the 2021 Lacombe Days and use of the city facilities for the festival, including the arenas for the Bolorama. As you can see in our budget planning, that should have been attached. Being conservative with our sponsorship, as we know it's been a difficult year for many businesses. This does leave us in a negative for 2021. The larger events that we are planning, such as the Winnie Beer Fest, will not strongly impact our budget if the event cannot proceed due to regulations. And we do have the capital to allow for a diminished account while we can still retain our reserves meant for contingencies and emergencies. We appreciate the support of the city through funding, services, and support during the planning year, as well on the festival weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosanna. I'd just like to say that I know it's been a challenging time, and certainly Lacombe Days not happening was missed by a lot of people in our community. The parade, which we were involved with, of course, and it was something that I missed greatly, and to see those faces of the kids and so on. It was just a great experience for myself. So thank you again for all your hard work. Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Councillor Coxon. And yes, this committee could not do it without Rosanna's significant efforts and organization through the year. A couple of comments I think we need to reiterate is, so Lacombe Days did pay for the drive-in movie, which I think is approximately about $4,000 between licensing and the movie. And-
Plus we had to get in, like porta potties just for that event. So
Right.
there was-
It's an overall budget of around $4,500, I think it was.
It was about 6,000.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, anyway, so then also we were a sponsor of the Gord Bamford concert of $10,000 as well. So in essence, we laid Rosanna off during the COVID, just as the performing arts did with Rosanna being without employment. So we're basically trying to reimburse what we did do for the events within 2020, being the drive-in movie and $10,000 sponsorship to the Gord Bamford drive-in concert. So.
And in general, admin costs as well throughout the year.
So that is where the request is, because to clarify that it's more that way.
Councillor Koenig?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ellison. Just, so for my own clarification, is there is no carryover money from the year before, or there is?
There is, so I was actually able to get our financial statements from the treasurer. And we have 37, so carryover from the city, or specifically,
Just
or
total.
just in general. So we do have 37,000 in our accounting at the moment. With our reserves of 10,000, that leaves us with 27,000 remaining. So according to the 2021 budget, our negative, we are looking at a budget of about negative 13,000. So we do have the money to carry over that negative budget with this.
Well, and if we're lucky enough to be outside of this pandemic at next summer, it would be nice to do something really special
Right.
for Lacombe Days to celebrate that event. Anything else from any councillors? Mayor Creasy, did you want to say anything?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I was just, can't help but think there's an awful lot of talented and creative people in our community that would love to be involved in the operating of Lacombe Days. And I'm just wondering, who do they contact and how do they go about becoming involved?
So anybody who wants to become involved is just signing up through the Lacombe Days website or emailing me at info@lacombedays.ca. But all my contact information is on the website as well, or Mayor or Councillor Ross or Councillor Gullickson could forward them on to me as well.
Councillor Koenig?
Just building on the mayor's comments, is that on our website, the fact that is it front and center that we need volunteers for these kind of organizations?
I would not say it is front and center. It is on there. Director Duke and I have talked about this specific lack of volunteers on this one, and we are looking at ways to promote that.
Okay, perfect. Just to give you a heads up, and the reason this happened is that we had 3 members all leave at the same time for different reasons. So it was very, but down to the 2 of us, 3 of us, I guess, at that point. So it was a bit of a shock, but I think there would be some people come forward, I hope. Councillor Hoekstra?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The budget is based on sponsors, like for 2021. Are these confirmed sponsors already, or is this just a?
That is based off of our
Previous.
past sponsorship, and that's a very conservative amount as well. Like I did not include some of the sponsors in there, and I did lower some of the sponsorship dollars because I know everybody is struggling this year, so I wanted to be conservative with that dollar amount. But yeah, none of that is confirmed at this point. We don't usually typically go out for fundraising or sponsorship until after the new year.
And
Councillor Ross?
if I may comment further to the volunteering, even if for example, what led to the success of for example, Lacombe in the past was, it was another committee in itself within Lacombe Days Committee that allowed events to succeed. For example, the Bolorama, it's the Shipples and the Sawyer families that we work collaboratively with them and with the city for facilities and so forth to make events work. So I'm trying not to overwhelm somebody of you putting on a 4-day event, but no, it's trying to get other subcommittees to take on events that can assist it to succeed. You don't have to be like the whole, if I'm trying to say, because that's what has really made my 6 years a part of it is, groups or organizations that come forward to Lacombe Days wanting to be part of the 4 days, that it's a working relationship with various different groups and organizations. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councilor Ross. Anybody else? No? Thank you, Rosanna, again.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, and a great job you're doing with Lacombe Days for sure. We see that every month.
Yes.
Success is benign. $20. So that's legit. Take care of it.
So next up is the Lacombe Flying Club. And if you can introduce yourselves, that'd be great. Thank you.
I'm John Fromm, the president of the Lacombe Flying Club.
Chris Anderson, vice president.
Thank you very much for coming, and the floor is yours.
Oh, you're on that. Basically just go over the you know more about it than me.
Yeah, well, this is news to me.
You know you're limited time when we're tight.
Yeah. So the guy that usually does this is working in Toronto
now. Yeah, so I'm assuming everybody's got a copy of the financial statement.
We do.
Basically, running over everything in general, the club's in a good position year over year, increasing our revenues. Current liabilities are decreased a little bit. Our overall fund balance has increased primarily due to fuel sales and membership fees.
I'm not a financial guy.
Yeah, so page 3 will basically just give you your statement of revenue over our expenditures. Gas or fuel purchases, we provide a discount to members of 15 cents. 15 cents per liter due to a membership, which is the discount. Obviously, December of 2019 from August, we're showing roughly 2/3 and 3/4 of our purchases sort of on par, even with COVID, to sell the same amount of fuel, if not a little bit more this year. Hangar leases are same year over year, as are the rental of the club hangar. Taxes and membership fees are up. So overall, our sales revenue is increasing due to those.
No idea.
Okay, so financially, everything is pretty solid for you.
Yes.
Now, do you have, one of the questions I have for you is not in regards to your finances, it's in regards to the airport itself. Can you give us some insight in to some potential changes or what you plan to do out there in the next year?
Absolutely. First, I'd like to just mention that in the last couple of years, we have done a couple of taxiway projects. Last year, we rebased and repaved part of the taxiway. And the year before that, we put in a brand new taxiway both with the city and county's assistance. The new taxiway was also done with a cap grant from the province. Those taxiways were repaired and installed with the hopes that they would generate new buildings, new hangar development at the airport. And this year has seen the start of 3 new hangars going up, 2 on the repaired taxiway, 1 currently under construction on the new taxiway that was put in. And we have 1 more hangar on the new taxiway planning to start construction as early as next week. I believe they'll be coming into full permits tomorrow.
Excellent.
So development is moving ahead at a pretty decent rate.
Good. Now, any other new programs or anything out there that you've got planned or anything
Well,
in the near future?
Yeah. In the near future, we were successful with the city's assistance in getting a cap grant for the resurfacing of the runway and the main taxiway and apron. That was supposed to happen this year, but due to COVID and not being notified of the grant in time, it has been put off until next year. The funds will be coming from this year's budget, but the work will be being done in the spring.
And there is no issues carrying all that forward?
No.
As far as the grants go and so on? Good. Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Councillor Gokson. So with the reconstruction of Brownstone Avenue, and maybe this is part question to CO Gowdy. Each hangar is assessed differently because obviously there's going to be now hangars at Brownstone Avenue with being able to have services and possibly living quarters, from what I understand. So is that going to be tax assessed differently? So there's more potential for city assessment as well, or how is that going to affect maybe to Director Duke as well as within, because now there's obviously a different potential of tax revenue with hangars are going to be significantly worth more than the hangars on the east side, really, like.
So the servicing cost would be disclosed as part of the building permit application and would form a part of how the assessor determined the assessable value of that property. I can't say that it's a 1-to-1 though. It's not like, since you spent $25,000 extra servicing water and sewer, the property, that one's worth $25,000 more. It's not that simple. It would be worth more. You'd mentioned living quarters. I believe there is the opportunity for an overnight development of an overnight thing in the hangars, but there's no opportunity for long-term permanent living quarters to be developed in that zone. So if that were the case, I would encourage such a proponent to come in and talk to us sooner than later, because that would be probably a challenging thing to navigate.
Yeah, that's actually something that's still being discussed before the Airport Advisory Committee. We're just honestly looking into it. I'm hopeful that we'll look into it some more.
Well, and to move forward to the, forgive me for the acronym, but is down the road in 2021, is it not? Well, which would hopefully encourage more traffic and use of the airport as well. Could you explain that, John? I forgot the acronym of the IFR approach, happy license. So that is, that's 2021, is it not? It's been moved ahead because of the amount of funding you've received?
Yeah, it's still up in the air too. Unfortunately, as prices come in increasingly higher, we're gonna have to be looking at this capital plan again some more. Right now, for 2021, we do have PAPI lights. PAPI is Precision Approach Path Indicator. They're lights to assist you when landing at night or in IFR conditions. But the initial estimate we had at $29,000 is less than half what it has currently come to be. So we're going to be probably pushing that off. And that may have to be planned out 2 or 3 years down the road. What we would like to look at doing, because the Brownstone Road reconstruction brought the water and sewer into the airport. The city, the city had water and sewer services stubbed in where we would like to put an access road for the north hangars. So we're going to be looking at trying to actually bury water and sewer lines so that we can carry on with that road, which will also be a multi-year thing.
Mayor Creasy, did you want to jump in on this?
I wanted to thank President Fromm and the Lacombe Flying Club for their cooperation with the recent Gord Bamford concert. As you all know, that concert raises a substantial amount of money for our community, and I just think that it's great to see our local organizations working together in concert, as it were. So,
Yeah, I'd like to echo that also. I think that was a great event for our community, and we needed something to lift our spirits. So thank you very much for that. Any other questions or comments? No, you got off pretty easy. Thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Gullison, just a comment about the Echo Lacombe Association, which is the next presenters. Unfortunately, President Jared Reish was unable to attend tonight, and a substitute could not be found in time. So they are asking for the same funding in 2021 as they had in 2020. However, they do have a few new initiatives that they're planning for 2021. And so the option before council tonight is we do have Manager Lapointe in the room who can speak to the association's plans and to the presentation on behalf, or we can reschedule the group to come and present another night, whatever's preferred.
Thank you very much, Director Duke. Guy, do you feel comfortable in presenting their?
Certainly, if you want me to do the presentation, I could do that, or I'm open to questions. If you want to just limit it to questions, we could do whatever you prefer.
Well, we're right on time. We're a little ahead, so we have time to look this over if you want to do it now, instead of them coming back at a later date, because I think we're going to get compressed pretty tight at our meetings later. So.
I'll move on.
And you're comfortable with this and not having them here? We're okay, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, good.
I do attend the meetings, and we do also have Councillor Jacobson who attends the meetings as well.
Perfect, then let's go ahead and do it.
Alrighty, so I made some quick notes. I will apologize, I'm probably not as polished as usual, but I'm always excited by the initiatives the group is undertaking both now and into 2021. probably take a look at the Storefront Enhancement Program, which continues to be a success for the group and for the city, I will say. ECHO received 11 applications this year and approved funding for 10. 8 of those are done at the moment, and should the final 2 projects finish their work within the calendar year, we will have been officially oversubscribed once again. So the city provides $14,000. Usually what ends up happening is ECHO needs to top up those dollars in order to cover the full amount asked for. If you're interested in the projects that have been completed so far, there was the Uglies patio, some landscaping at the Performing Arts Center. Lido's did a patio as well. Downton & Co did some windows up front. Nowco did some lighting. I don't know if you guys noticed that one. It was quite sharp. Actually, it made a big change. Sun Life did some work around their awning and some paint touch-ups. Joe Social relocated and has a new sign, and then Moe's did a sign as well. So those were the 8 completed projects. The 2 outstanding are the Lacombe Hotel. And what was the other one? Oh, the other one is escaping me, I apologize. So with the onset of COVID, ECHO decided that it needed to take some action, especially when the subsequent restrictions took hold in early March. Their first step was to meet with local businesses virtually to ensure priorities were understood for the businesses. Afterwards, it was clearly communicated that they should establish a series of webinars led by local business support people. And they felt that way they feel more comfortable asking questions and getting the support that they needed. ECHO created the Open Lacombe website, which hosted a number of local businesses and their hours of operation, which were constantly changing. Some businesses were closing, reopening, changing their hours. This was kind of a one-stop shop that ECHO established. They provided some online social media training sessions, and more recently have decided to support the Chamber of Commerce with the Get in the Loop program, which is basically an online, it's an app that will feature some local shopping opportunities. And they do hope to digitize the Passport to Christmas program via this app as well. So ECHO is supporting the Chamber of Commerce in that endeavor. And finally, they did a patio winterization program just recently and decided to support a couple restaurants in extending their patio season, if you will. ECHO Internet, I'm not sure how many of you are aware of it. I think we spoke about it last year. It's been a little bit slow to begin with. ECHO's taken on a few customers and are really ready now at this point to move forward. Just to clarify, there are no infrastructure requirements for the work that they're doing. The program utilizes existing providers for the service backbone. So the service should be as dependable as the large providers. So basically the way that works is they're wholesaling the lines to ECHO. And you still get the same service and speeds as you'd see with Shaw or TELUS. No Rogers at the moment, but there's an expectation that the service will be more than adequate. The one shortcoming I think that we've run into is that there's an inability to bundle it with a TV or a cable package. And so there's been some feedback on that, but again, a number of people have indicated to ECHO that this is an attractive option because a lot of people are now moving on to online streaming platforms. And so that cable service may not be such a deterrent as well. So we'll be moving into marketing that a little bit more in earnest in the near future here. ECHO Energy itself is closing in on 500 accounts, 410 natural gas, and there was a gap there because initially ECHO did not offer gas. From the operation of that utility, ECHO is expecting about $70,000 worth of revenue, and they were able to pass along a $10,000 savings to local business accounts at the height of COVID restrictions this year, and they did that by providing wholesale rates. From that fund, ECHO was able to provide $25,000 to the EcoVision Roofs for Kids program that just recently launched, and also provided a number of sponsorships, including Social Media Breakfast, Culture and Harvest Fest, the Bamford House Kitchen, Light Up the Night, and of course, the city's ice conference. They do still maintain the economic development microsite and Christie's regular use. We do get regular analytics from that site. I didn't want to bore you with all those details, but just to give you an idea of some of the activity that's going on that site. In Q1, there was 232 visits to the site. Of those, there was 38 returning visits. Q2, 424, and 81 of those were returning visits. And in Q3, we had 152 visits, with 32 of those being returning visits. So people are coming to that site and checking things out. We did mention new initiatives planned for 2021. I won't get into major detail around them, but we are endeavoring to look at a food rescue program. We are also, ECHO is looking at a merchandising Your Way program, and that was essentially ECHO wanted to start an online store, but found that it would be difficult to inventory items and how would they get this information out there to local retailers about the availability of products and to customers. So instead we're working, ECHO was working with retailers or local businesses to find a way to feature Lacombe-based items via their individual storefronts or online stores, if you will. The Community Wellness Fund is something that we mentioned last year, and given the impact of COVID, the decision ECHO made was not to move forward with that until the conditions were a little bit more conducive. And there was a suggestion from ECHO that the Business Partnership Fund, which is oftentimes underutilized, that it be renamed the Business Initiative Fund, and that ECHO would have the ability to maybe decide how to repurpose those dollars or focus those dollars in the most advantageous way to benefit local businesses. So that is what ECHO had to provide, and I'm open to any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Guy. I appreciate that. And I know I was at that event when the kids were running all over the place, pulling students on their leashes, trying to escape. So that was fun. It was nice to see that, and hopefully nobody gets hurt by the little horns that are about that long now. So is there any questions for Guy regarding ECHO? Councillor Connacht?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Alex. And I just wanted to highlight, or not highlight, but just echo the support that you have done for local business community. I think you guys do more in a way than things like the chamber do, I think, in fact, for local business community, especially with the dollars. And I think that's, as a former business owner, I think that should be stressed more than it is. I mean, I think it's terrific. The storefront enhancement program, is that, I think initially was geared just towards downtown. Is that still the focus, or do you see that, and rightly so, but do you see that expanding a little bit out into the rest of the community, or not so much?
I believe ECHO has had that discussion for the time being because it's oversubscribed within the downtown. Without adding more dollars to that fund, the decision has been to limit it, but certainly I think there is a feeling amongst the group that there's the demand there to warrant something that is beyond the downtown. But right now, budget is kind of the limitation.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? No, I'd also like to say that I think ECHO does a great job, and being the sponsor of the arenas, I think that'd be awesome to have that logo in the center of the ice. Maybe not so much this year, but in the years going forward, certainly a lot of people will see it. Right now it's limited, but that'll become more of a valuable sponsorship as we go forward. So if there's nothing else, then we'll move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody want a break?
Yes.
Yes, we'll take, how about we take 10 minutes now? That'd be good. Come back at 6:30.
Sure.
checks, contracts, like I got
230
hours into.
Okay, we're back from our little break and we might as well get into the next part of our agenda. We have no public hearings, so that's nice. Request for decision. 5.1, land use bylaw 400.32, Trinity Crossing, R6 rezoning, first reading. Director Thompson?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Gullickson. Based on the recent changes to the Trinity Crossing Outline Plan, Lacombe Developments is proceeding with the rezoning of the land plus existing parking site from future designation to R6. The proposed rezoning is consistent with the Municipal Development Plan, North Area Structure Plan, and the amended Trinity Crossing Outline Plan. Administration supports the proposed rezoning and is presenting bylaw 400.32 for first reading and for the scheduling of a public hearing. Any questions? I'm available.
Councillor Connell?
I also move that council give first reading to bylaw 400.32 as presented.
Thank you. Any other comments regarding first reading? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. Oh, sorry. Opposed?
No.
No, you're in favor too? Okay. All right. So we are unanimous? Yes. Go ahead, Councillor Jacobson.
Yeah, I'm just making a second motion that council schedule a public hearing for bylaw 400.32 at the 5:30 PM Monday, November 9th, 2020 meeting.
Thank you. Did you get that, Ross?
Yes, I did, Deputy Mayor Gullickson. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. On to our next item then. FCSS Connects operating agreement, sorry, 5.2, Director Jute.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gullickson. Before council tonight is a new multi-year agreement between the city and Lacombe and District Family and Community Support Services for operation of the Connects Specialized Transportation Service. Attached to this part of your agenda is a number of documents. The first attachment is a draft operating agreement, which has been reviewed and endorsed by the FCSS board. The agreement includes two appendices. Number one shows the 2020 rates for Connects rides set by FCSS as well. And number two, the appendix number 2 is the marketing brochure, which captures the current program. And there you can see the eligibility, those who can use the service as developed by FCSS since 2009. Finally attached for comparison is the expired Connects agreement. So just going on to the agreement itself, key provisions of this agreement are summarized on page 2 of your RFD for quick reference. But to highlight, the agreement provides for up to 10 years of services. The agreement is flexible for both parties with an annual window to review and revise the agreement. The city can also amend the agreement for emergencies, including temporarily suspending funding or commandeering the service for other uses such as evacuations. And of course, there are basic agreement terminations provisions with cause, without cause, that kind of thing. And most importantly of all, council's prerogative to set the service level through operating budget approval annual is retained. So just a final note about this agreement. It was drafted to capture the current manner that the city and FCSS are operating the Connect service. It does not include in advance any alternative ways to operate Connects. Council's interest in that awaits the administrative report on different options due in Q2 of 2021. And I'll take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Director Jude. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gullickson. So I'm the representative for FCSS. The 2019 budget, the board reviewed the service fees for Connex, and they were increased. As all due respect, some of the fees didn't feel even covered cost of fuel. So in this area, we and through other discussions within the service of FCSS, we're discussing thresholds of delivery of services. For example, to bring one thing to the attention of council is the age of 55 is used as a number as a senior. I guess that could be a point of discussion. And 2019, I approached CEO Gaudian with the support of Director Duke and city administration. We went through a significant amount of advertising through the paper and social media and so forth of the availability of the bus, as we have 3 buses, and I've ever since been on FCSS, I feel we have an opportunity within the community to utilize our buses more, and I still feel within FCSS and the city, we could be more aggressive to the potential of user groups or being part to try to create more revenue and awareness of the availability of the buses. There's the do dialysis runs and so forth. And even within a meeting with AHS EMS, we discussed that through the provincial government, hospital transfers were always done between inter-hospital transfers were always done with ambulances, and they don't necessarily have to be done that within the alpha call. So CEO Gowdy, myself, and Mayor and Deputy Mayor Gullickson, we had a meeting with EMS, so there may be some cash, maybe some revenue opportunities there. But yeah, just an area of discussion if council feels or want to make any amendments suggested to the board. That's open to discussion if you agree.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Appreciate that. I think that's exactly what this review is to do. Look at all of those options, and hopefully administration has a chance to take into account all the comments from Councillor Ross regarding potential revenue sources and other ways to use the buses. Any other comments on the Mayor Creasy?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Gullickson. I was just wondering if Director Duke could just summarize the eligibility requirements for use as it sits now. Some of them may require some updating, and just to let everybody know where we're at now.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. The brochure has one short statement about eligibility, and to my knowledge, there is no written program beyond this. Currently, the statement is that Lacombe Connects offers transportation to seniors and those who need assistance due to mobility, age, or illness. In my time at the City of Lacombe, that's been updated in just one small way. It used to say that it was potentially available to people to whom the cost of transportation was prohibitive. That's been changed now to emphasize the medical transport side of things. That is the only update that I'm aware of.
Thank you very much. I wanted to make sure everybody understood that. Thank you.
Yes, CEO Gowdy.
So just one additional factor there in eligibility, if you return to page 2 of the Transportation Services Agreement, point number 4 does put a little bit of definition around those brochure terms. So current eligibility is City of Lacombe residents and persons who live in Lacombe County within 20 kilometers of the City of Lacombe, who are seniors aged 55 years or older. And as Councilor Ross has rightfully pointed out, those are 2 different things. Age 55 years old is not a senior, definition. 65 would be the age. Persons with special needs, including medical treatment needs, and persons with ability and mobility challenges. So there is some room for discretion there, I would say, because of course there is no special or no definition about special needs, ability challenges, or mobility challenges. That would be one of the things that we would want to tease out in the review going forward for sure.
Yeah, I think the only time 55-year-olds think of themselves as seniors is when they can get a discount. Any other comments on this? Thank you very much, Director Duke. Appreciate that. We will move on to our next item.
Motion.
Oh, we need a motion. I'm sorry. I didn't see it in my program. Would somebody be willing to do a motion for us on that? I didn't see there was one here.
Can I ask a question first?
Certainly. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you. Sorry, a little bit late to the party with the questions. I just had a question, just further details on eligibility for those riders. If we accept this agreement as presented, it does sort of slightly, I don't know, narrow down who's, eligible to use the service in comparison to what sort of practice has been. So how in practice is that going to occur when you have people that may have accessed it in the past or are under the understanding that they could access it, but now by these rules would not? Like, how is that going to be, what do I want to say? I'm missing the word. How's that going to be identified by staff, I guess? Like, how is that going to be, how do you mark the checklist off for the criteria, whether you're able to access?
Director Duke, do you have an answer to that?
I do, thank you, Deputy Mayor Gullickson. To reiterate, this agreement captures the Connects as it's currently being operated. There is no changes to the eligibility. They've been articulated in the agreement as a way of, again, capturing what's currently happening. But there are no changes to the service as a result of this agreement.
CEO Gowdy?
I think the fear or the concern that I'm hearing is that in the past, there was an accommodation for financial need.
Yes.
And perhaps with these updated programs, maybe that excludes someone who previously accessed the service. I can confirm, and we will double confirm tomorrow, that will not happen, that anyone who is previously accessing the services until an eligibility criteria is reviewed and adopted by council, there would be no change to their ability to access the service. So no one who has previously accessed it would be removed at this time.
Okay, thank you, because that is my concern. Is I know that there are people that don't specifically have mobility issues. Like, there's no reason for them to access the service other than the fact that they don't have a vehicle, for example. So that's a financial thing. They're not able to make them, like, they're not able to get themselves to, say, Red Deer for whatever purpose. So I know that we have talked in the past about this being a service that they could access. It might be a small fraction of the people that are utilizing it, but that was my understanding by people that are accessing it. So I just wanted to make sure that that is still available for that small segment of the population.
Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gullickson. I think that's a very well point taken. I think what I would like as an FCSS board member is to hear feedback as to be more specific for suggestions for thresholds. Because I think through many of the programs through FCSS, where it's going to be very budget minded in these times and moving forward. And yes, we even did make changes within FCSS in other areas. That was, anyways, long story short is that's what I'm asking is for suggestions on thresholds. And I guess maybe what I'm asking Director Duke as well is this agreement is very more specific and far more in detail than the previous agreement though. So perhaps maybe some highlights up to where, because before it was a little more, this is far more specific and in depth than previous. Perhaps maybe we could highlight why this is coming forward compared to the previous agreement, why we're doing this tonight in the first place, I guess.
Director Duke?
Certainly, thank you, Councillor Ross. So the agreement that you have before you is quite a basic services agreement. It's standard municipal practice to have an agreement of this detail for services that you're contracting with an independent agency. So I'm not finding it a particularly complex one, although it is certainly more detailed. And then there's some specifics in this that guard, if you were, or allow for continuous review of the terms and conditions, and preserve council's ability to alter the service in the court without changing the agreement substantially or having to come up with a new agreement, that the agreement itself allows for modifications over the course of time.
And I think it has to be understood to the public, these are the city's buses, basically owned and expensed and so forth. It's just FCS is managing it for the city in regards to that. If there was a lack of funding at the end of the year negative, it was made up by the city. So that's why I'm concerned about thresholds, yet in the same respect, I'm trying to encourage more groups, organizations in need. Like me personally, FCSS should be there for those in need. And that's where I think it's important to have thresholds. Those that are, have available transportation or have the financial stability, with all due respect, then there has to be thresholds, because we're here to support those in need, in my opinion.
Thank you, Director. Appreciate that. A quick question, like if a person comes and they say, I have financial need, do they pay full price?
I'm not aware of any means tests that FCSS is applying at this time. I could be wrong about that. I have asked. I'm not aware of a means test being applied.
So they would pay the same as anybody else though at that point?
As anybody else using the the Connect service? My understanding is yes. Again, to refer you to the brochure, which outlines the costs depending on the number of stops and the different.
Yeah, so they would pay the same. CEO Gowdy, go ahead.
I just want to make sure that we're all the same impression, gets paid the same is the subsidized rate. There is no non-subsidized rate. There's no like market rate or something for Connects. It's just a flat rates in the brochure.
Okay.
For all users. Oh, sorry, I'm being told I'm incorrect here.
Sorry, just to add to what CEO Gowdy's been saying, Connects has in the past taken on some charter services. And when they do that, they do charge the full rate. Now, when we say the full rate, they have calculated the cost of operating a bus per hour, and including the city's sort of garaging and repairs and fuel and that. And so they've applied that in the instances where they've done charter. They're doing, I believe, very little of that at this time.
Thank you very much, Councilor Hibbs.
Thank you. Yeah, just a brief comment on the fact that I do like within the agreement, I think it's clause 20, where it does allow for that opportunity that you can negotiate some changes if necessary, because I mean, yeah, I think that's very wise, because if there are things that pop up and, things, the demand, the request for service could change. So I do appreciate that. I would go ahead and make the motions. I don't believe one has been made yet. That council approve the Connect Accessible Transportation Services Agreement with the Lacombe and District Family and Community Support Services as presented.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Unanimous.
You know how Mayor works?
No, he's still there.
So his vote needs to be recorded, unfortunately. If he is here. Now, if I make a point of order.
Yes.
So he actually, Mayor Creasy, are you there? No, I believe he has dropped out, and if we can review the tape afterwards to confirm, prior to Councillor Hibbs putting the motion on the floor, and therefore it is acceptable that he is out of the room for both the debate related to the motion on the floor and the vote.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to our next item then. Franchise fee rates for Fortis and ATCO. 5.3, and that's Director Piché.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gullickson. Before Council tonight is a recommendation to change the rates of the franchise fees for both gas and electricity. When utility companies install the infrastructure for their service, there's often an agreement put in place where the municipality will receive a percentage of the distribution and transmission rates in exchange for the use of the right-of-ways. The Alberta Utilities Commission has capped those percentages for the franchise fees at 35% for gas and 20% for electricity. The city's current rates are set at 24.5% for ATCO gas and 12.75% for Fortis Alberta electricity. Each year, administration reviews the rates amongst its municipal comparators and calculates the median rate. On the table on the second page of the memo reflects the comparisons. The median rate for being proposed for 2021 is 27% for gas and 17% for electricity. This change in the rates will result in approximately $90,000 for gas and $329,000 for electricity in additional revenue. The effect that this has on residents is an average annual increase of $12.70 for gas and $42 for electricity. This evening, administration is recommending that council sets the 2021 natural gas franchise fee rate at 27% and the 2021 electricity franchise fee rate at 17%, which is the median rates for the municipal comparator, or the comparator municipalities. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them at this time.
Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gobson. I'll just go ahead and make the motion that council set the 2021 natural gas franchise fee rate at gas for the city of Lacombe at 27%, the median rate of comparator municipalities.
Thank you. Any further discussion regarding that, other than myself? Councillor Connick?
Thank you. Just an overall comment. While it's great that we compare ourselves to these other communities, invariably at the end of the day, it's, it's terrific, we're gonna be getting more revenue, but at the end of the day, ADCO and Fortis will just pass that on to the consumer. And our rates will go up as consumers as well. So that's,
yeah. That is my comment also, is that it's a hidden tax. And all we're doing here is increasing our taxes. Councillor Hibbs?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I guess my question would be, and I apologize if that was addressed, but I've missed it. Why such a considerable jump in the Fortis? Like that's
where we look at our municipal comparators. In all honesty, we are actually at, let me just see here, we are one of the lower rates for 2020 for Fortis. We were, I believe, aside from Fort Saskatchewan, which does actually only have a 0% rate, they don't charge franchise fees. For electricity, we are one of the lowest rates at 12.75% amongst our comparators. The thing is that everybody else has gone up quite a bit. So the median is basically flat in the middle there. And with everybody going up, that jump also makes us go up into that median rate.
And I guess my question is, are you aware of any reason why that has occurred? Like, it just seems odd. Like, I've watched this year to year and it just seems a sizable jump in 1 year.
CEO Gowdy, you have an answer to that question?
Yes, I do. A two-part answer. I think number one, there's a general trend in municipalities to look for revenue wherever they can, and with recent years being difficult and projected to continue to be difficult, I think in general municipalities are accessing all of the revenue tools available to them. I've talked to Deputy Mayor Gullickson and others ahead of this meeting and in past years about this. It would be to my preference that there was no franchise fees charged across the board, but that really is not the case. And so for you to be competitive with your adopted comparable municipalities, you need to make similar use of the tools available to you for revenue generation. The second part of that answer is maybe more straightforward. Last year, Beaumont, for some reason, had really, really low posted rates. Posted 0%, if I remember, 0%.
I think
5%, okay. And they became a city over the last year. When they became a city, they reviewed their franchise fee rates, and similar to the city of Lacombe, said, well, let's look at sort of comparable municipalities, make sure we're taking advantage of the same tools available. And so they adjusted their rates, and that actually in the overall pool has quite an effect.
Okay.
Councillor Jacobson?
Yeah, I suspect the reason why it's so popular is the same reason why it's popular for the province to cut their education taxes and municipal property taxes. So you don't know where it's going. But my question was for administration, so just so we're understanding what we're voting on here, have you assumed these numbers in your preliminary budget projections?
Yes, we have. And without these numbers, you will see in our operating budget that you, even with these numbers, you have a challenge in the utility rates, in that we have built a budget on 3% and 3%. We actually originally had wanted to make recommendations higher than that for the economic viability of those utilities going forward. But we have been able to remove the need for that recommendation by offsetting those utility fees with these utility fees.
Any other comments? So we have the motion on the floor for the ATCO gas increase to 27%. And I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? So there's just show Ross that I was opposed to that.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to the next. Could I get a motion for the electrical franchise? Councillor Hibbs?
You need me to read it out?
You okay with it the way it is, Ross? Councillor Hibbs is moving the second motion.
As presented?
As
Yes,
presented.
as presented.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion regarding this? I think we kind of covered it off. All those in favor? Opposed? I'm opposed again, Ross.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to our budgets. 524, 2021 operating budget and 3-year operating plan. Senior Manager Reyes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Galaxon. On August 10th, 2020, Council provided the administration with direction to bring a budget with a 0.8% tax increase and a 0% COLA. Tonight, we are presenting the first draft of the 2021 budget. And tonight we are taking this year we are taking a bit of a novel approach. We have broken the budget into 2 pieces, mainly to provide some clarity when it comes to what's in the budget. So as you can see in the report, there is tax funded operations and there is utility funded operations. One thing that I want to mention is that the budget right now is not balanced. And the only reason that why it's not balanced is because of the lower transfer from the LPS to the IT department for the city. At the end of the budget process, for sure, it has to be balanced. We are aware that the LPS may be bringing some other recommendations and that the commission will be taking a look at that. And depending on what comes out of that, we will be revising the overall budget and bringing an updated budget to the budget workshops that will be taking place on October 26th and October 27th.
And possibly the 28th if it.
And possible 28th. Yes, thank you. I will be highlighting a few items on the report, and if there is anything that I need to clarify further, I will be happy to do so. But before I do that, I would like to make a couple of corrections. Number 1, attachment number 4. You should all have received a hard copy of attachment number 4. Attachment number 4, there was only one change that happened. The community builder, there was no contribution to that fund in 2020. Therefore, we removed that from 2020. And the effect of that is that the total transfers to reserves in 2021 will be increasing by $32,000. Since we are on appendix number 4, I would like to explain a couple more things. In 2021, we have included, of course, the community building, subject to council approval, of course. We have also removed the transfer to reserves for land development, sale of land. We'll be explaining in a little more detail at the budget workshops, but basically what we are recommending is not to budget for land sale for the lots that the city has at Land Council. The reason for that is economic conditions are very different to what they were a few years back when the practice started. Now it's very difficult to know when a lot will be sold, and administration feels that it's better to not to budget for the land sale. But when it happens, we will record it and transfer the funds to the proper reserve when it occurs.
CEO Gowdy?
So just to be very clear, we can go into it more like the operations budget, but essentially, in prior years, the city has budgeted for land sales and balanced its budget based on the funds from selling land. And we are recommending that that's not really a good practice. And so when those funds come in, you should actually put the money into a reserve, and because of the way the city financed the development, that reserve is in a huge negative right now, and so it actually just pays down a debt. And so there's really, it pained me to make the change, but it is the better way to do it. We should not be funding operations on the sale of land, for which we have a big loan to ourselves.
Thank you. Councilor Ross?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Deputy Mayor Gobson, my apologies. Under the water, is there not an opportunity to increase the rate of per cube at the, say, from $4.25 to $5 or something? With that, or is that such a minor amount that's going to not make any difference?
It is a minor amount, so I don't think it would make a big difference. You could make a change to that's the cubic meter rate at bulk water sales, I assume you're referring to.
Yeah.
But because we've split them out differently this year into tax funded and utility funded operations, maybe I would ask to hold that question just until we get to the water utility, because there is some comments that I want Senior Manager Reyes to go through ahead of time, if that, with your.
No, that's fine, sorry.
One more thing that I want to highlight on this appendix. As CEO Gowdy has mentioned, there are some reserves that are in deficit balances. And one of them is the Recreation and Parks Reserve. We have that in deficit balance. And because we know that it's going to take us some time to be able to bring that reserve back to a positive balance, we are recommending to increase transfers in 2021 to be able to bring it just above zero. Therefore, the Recreation and Facilities Reserve, we are recommending to increase the transfer from $35,000 a year to $120,000 a year, only for 1 year though, only in 2021, just enough to be able to bring that reserve to a positive balance. In the same would be the line that you see, parks and playgrounds. We are recommending to increase that from $20,000 to $60,000. So basically we have two reserves that in 2021, we have the opportunity of bringing them out of deficit by doing these changes. And everything else, as far as roads and transportation sewer, we're recommending to keep those at the same level as in 2020. Now, a second correction that I want to make relates to, in my memo, I mentioned that the LPS is increasing their reserve contributions by 155, which is not accurate. What it is they are asking to have contributions of $155,000. And in the increase is actually 105,000, not 155. In 2020, they contributed 50,000 to their capital reserve. In 2021, they are asking to contribute 155, which is broken into two pieces, 105 for capital and 50,000 for operating. That's how they have broken it down. The final piece that you see in this appendix is the utility reserves. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be moving now to the memo. And I'll be covering page number 5, which is the utility funded operations. In 2021, we are changing the way we calculate projected revenue from utilities. So essentially, it is a change in methodology. What we are doing is we are looking at the actuals for 2019 and 2021 to date, and we are using those figures to forecast what we think 2021 will be like. But more importantly, what we are doing is we are using volumes. We are using real volumes, and we are using rates that we think we can, that we are proposing. So in this case, we are proposing an increase of 3% in rates. We are using historical volumes, recent volumes, in order to arrive to our budgeted revenues for utilities. The main reason why we are doing that is because we feel that that's the best way that we can estimate what we are going to be selling. And the fact that we know that if we don't change the method we are using now, we are going to continue to realize variances. And you have seen those variances in past years. You have seen them in 2020. What we are trying to do is we are trying not to have those variances. Therefore, that has led to the change. And as you can see in the memo, a 3% increase will be going from $2.49 per cubic meter to $2.56. So a 7-cent increase per cubic meter in 2021. That's what we are recommending. And we are also recommending that flat rate to be increased from $27.01 to $27.82 per month on all active accounts.
Thank you very much. CEO Gowdy?
So the issue you have in your utilities is actually one that we have discovered as we've moved to regional utilities and had more accurate tracking. We're seeing that over time, although you're purchasing water, for example, on the water side, you're purchasing virtually the same amount from the regional commission, you're actually selling less. And so this year, we're actually down about 10% less in sales than we were last year. So there's something we're trying to solve there, where there's a volume gap that seems to have occurred. And on the wastewater side, as you're well aware, we have seen these issues now where we're actually transporting and treating a significant amount of stormwater to the wastewater treatment facility in Red Deer. These two facts make it unfeasible, I was gonna say impossible, but certainly not possible, unfeasible to maintain your utility rate increases at that CPI rate. And the case I will make for this is that the Alberta CPI is based on an assumption that there's a basket of goods purchased, and over time, that basket of goods, the cost changes. That basket of goods is actually a decent proxy for municipal services because there's a highly complex portfolio of costs and expenses that goes into the delivery of the service. When you break it down to something like water or wastewater, it's not actually a really complex, diverse basket of costs that goes into the development of that service cost. It's actually largely electricity, depreciation of the asset, and then stabilizing chemicals sometimes, depending on the severity of the effluent. And so those items are actually much closer to a commodity than they are to a consumer product. And so they would be looked at, your utility bills would actually be looked at as one component of the overall consumer basket of goods that is used to develop the Alberta CPI model. So with that said, we actually, even with these 3% proposed increases that you see here, we still think there is significant financial challenges in both utilities coming over the next 3 years, where we foresee the need to either contribute less to reserve contributions, or even in some years withdraw from the reserve and make no contribution to balance out these operations. And that, I guess, that's something to be aware of, because utility rates are something that when I look at other communities, or when we've looked at other communities, Lacombe is approximately, what did you say, 20% higher than some others you looked at? And I think that's fairly consistent. Our utility rates are a little bit higher than you see elsewhere, for some good reasons. The fact that we're pumping long distances to Red Deer, that's one reason that would increase our cost, but also for some wasteful reasons, which could include water leaks, treatment of stormwater, that sort of thing, which I think need to be corrected over the next 3 years. And we are looking at programs to do just that.
So now I would like to bring your attention back to appendix number 4. And on appendix number 4, you will notice the water general transfer. And you will see that in 2021, the proposed transfer to reserves is $187,000. And that's $139,000 less than in prior year. That can be partially attributed to the fact that in past years, including this year, the Water Commission has provided some relief or some temporary. They have dropped the rates temporarily. So in 2020, they have dropped the rates from July to December by a few pennies. But at the end, it all flows into what goes back to the reserve. In 2021, because of the adjustments that we have done, the transfer works out to be a much smaller amount. And again, that's reflected on the fact that we are expecting to make lower sales in 2021 related to the volume sales that we are seeing. And the fact that, as CEO Gaudi mentioned, we have the challenges of not all of the water that we buy is sold back to consumers, right? So that's a cost to the city, but it cannot be recovered by selling it, right? Now I will go on to wastewater. I'm just going to highlight that we use the same methodology for wastewater. So we are changing it. The challenge for wastewater is more pronounced than for water. Wastewater relies on water sales. In other words, if a customer is buying 10 cubic meters of water, what we bill them is 10 cubic meters of wastewater. But in reality, one of the challenges is that when the water goes into the system, there is additional water that gets in the system, which we know as infiltration. And that those are costs that the city cannot recover from customers, at least not in a direct way. So at the end, we are sending more water than what we are buying. And weather conditions play a factor in this case too. So in 2020, that has been a major factor for seeing wastewater be under financial pressure in a way. So even though we made some adjustments at the spring budget, we still see that wastewater is going to end up in a deficit at the end of 2020. So all those factors we have included in the 2021 budget, mainly to go back to trying to minimize that variance that council is seeing when we bring the quarterly reports. So hopefully that that the weather will cooperate next year and we do not get too much water infiltration and that would maintain those budget numbers what we are forecasting. And again, we are recommending a 3% increase in user fees. So that will make the price per cubic meter will move it from 266 to 275 in 2021. So basically it is another 7 cents, no, it's a little more, 9 cents increase in this case. And the fixed rate, we are proposing to increase it from $20.18 to $20.79 per account per month. What we have tried, because we are aware, as Hiro Gaudi has mentioned, we are aware that the pressure that the reserve, the wastewater reserve is going to be experiencing in the next few years. We have recommended a transfer of $159,000 from tax-funded operations, where those franchise fees go and be transferred to this department in order to minimize the amount of funds that would be needed to be able to fund the operations. So in this case, if I can bring you back to appendix number 4, we actually are, you see that there is no transfer to reserve. So basically what was happening is that instead of bringing 165,000, for example, we are saying we are going to cover the majority of that using this transfer, and we are only going to be transferred $6,000. So minimizing the transfer from reserve in 2021. That's the idea here. So although nothing is going to the reserve, what we are trying to do is minimize what is coming out of the reserve in 2021. And why is that? Because we know that in future years, you may need to draw more from the reserve. Finally, I would like to go and discuss solid waste. For solid waste, it remains fairly stable. Basically, it's just a decrease of 1.6%. We know that water and wastewater will be getting an increase. So administration is recommending to maintain the same fees, the same fees for solid waste, so no increases. And basically, when it comes to transferring to the reserve, will be a smaller transfer of 46,000. Solid waste, the reserve is pretty healthy. And what we can foresee is that we'll continue to contribute to that reserve. Therefore, we feel that keeping the rates the same it would be something that the city can do. So now I would like to move you to page number 2, tax funded operations. So for tax funded operations, we have included the 0.8% that the council has directed. The franchise fees that council approved tonight, the increase in franchise fees, the rates, has been also included in the budget. And that results in approximately $420,000 increase. Investment revenue, all of us are aware that interest rates are at historical lows. So it's very, very difficult to get anything more than 1% when it comes to bank account. So even before COVID, administration moved into engaging a professional investment manager to manage the city funds. And therefore, we are able to increase our budget by 69,000, even though we know that it's going to be a little more challenging to earn extra revenue. If rates will remain the same as they were a year ago, we will be increasing that amount by more. But unfortunately, because the rates are low, we cannot increase it by more. So 69,000 is good news. User fees. So in addition to utility rates increasing, but the volume being lower, that has caused revenue to come down. But we also have been impacted by COVID in 2020, and we have prepared a budget knowing that there can still be some impact in 2021 on user fees. So therefore, the user fees that we have included in the budget would be lower than they would normally be under no COVID, under a no COVID situation. So we have also adjusted that. In regards to personnel, you have appendix number 2, I believe it is. On appendix number 2, we provide you with a detail by department on what the personnel costs are. So that would be wages and benefits. And we provide that as a comparison. In 2021, there is no COLA, but as you are aware, there will be a cost that increase wages, that would be benefits. So our benefit provider has provided with higher fees for benefits. In addition to that, one of the major costs is movements on the grid. So basically, if an employee is hired and they do not have a lot of experience, they go on step 1. And then every year they will be moving up on the grid up to step 5. So most of the costs that you see as an increase relates to that, to step increases. However, there are some other costs that we have identified on the report. So there is a number of positions that are being requested. One of them is in the police department. They were requesting, they have been requesting an IT dedicated person to be hired. So that's included in the 239,000 that you see there. But again, I would like to remind council that we are aware that they are reconsidering that, and that may be changing. So when we know what their position is in regards to that, we are going to make the changes accordingly. Administration is also requesting a new custodian position. This will be a position that will be shared between City Hall, the LMC, and Fire Hall. This position would have a zero impact on the tax base because it will be funded by current, current costs. So right now, at the City Hall, for example, we do not have a staff member working in doing the work. What we have is a contractor. So basically, if we did not do this, we would still have the cost of the contractor to be able to do the cleaning on site. And so at the end of the day, there will be zero impact, even though on wages you can see the increase, there'll be decreases in other areas. That's what I would like to clarify. The Lacombe Fire Department, that's another change that I want to ensure that council is clear in regard to what that means. Basically, in the past, what we were doing is we were expensing only the city portion of the on-call firefighters, and anything that the county paid was any of that, the 66,000, was being offset against wages. So therefore, we had only net wages. Now what we are doing is we are recognizing gross wages and we are recognizing our revenue in the same department. So there is zero impact, right? So it's just a reclassification. Finally, I would like to mention about the last position that administration is asking, and that is an engineering technician position. And this is a position that administration feels that it's necessary to be able to operate the department the way that the department to be able to do the work that is required. Currently, the work has been done by the municipal intern, and part of the cost for the intern have been offset by a grant in the last 2 years. I believe it's $22,000 grant. That will no longer be the case in 2021. We will not be receiving a grant. So therefore, administration is proposing that this position be made a permanent position based on the need of the department. Now, I would like to talk a little bit about the grants to other organizations. So by now, council has seen all the presentations from the community groups. And what we have done is we have included an appendix showing council what the contributions are. On appendix number 3, you will be able to see all the contributions. In most cases, we have maintained them at the same level as in 2020. And whenever we know that they have requested less, like in the case of the library, we have included what they are planning to request, which is approximately $10,000 less. But another highlight that I want to make on appendix number 3 is for FCSS grant, you will see a decrease of $55,000. Last year, council approved a request of an additional one-time $55,000 to FCSS. This year, they have indicated that they do not need that they only need the regular request. So we have included that. And in regard to the grant that the city receives from the provincial government. We do not know the exact amount yet, so we have included the same amount. When we know what the amount will be, which is going to be until early 2021, we'll be making the change and we'll bring it as a spring adjustment.
Good question.
Just wait a second. You okay for questions now?
Yes, I can continue, yes.
Okay, Councillor Ross?
Thank you. I see that the Flying Club did 22,230, and I apologize, I missed the last council meeting, but that's a slight increase. And my question was, sorry, not to put everybody on the bus, I thought the Park and Regional Library was doing the same, but there's $12,000 increase, but that's per capita requisition. I thought Park and Regional Library was the same as last year. Why is it per capita, but yet it's $12,000 more?
No, it's not the same. It's 2020.
Well, budget in 2019 was 107.
We're doing 2021.
And no, I know, and 2020 was, well, my apologies, sorry. Okay. Oh, and another question is the regional tourism assumed that they were going to get a 0.8% increase, and yet everybody else on the chart, and yet they did not, did they? 55,960. Okay, sorry. My apologies.
Oh, Director Jude.
Sorry, I just want to clarify, I don't see Lacombe Days Association here on the list. Am I just not able to see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's here.
It's, oh, there it is.
Right above FCSS.
Yeah, and that is a reduction.
Yeah, Lacombe Days, and that's what they asked for, so. And of course, we can make changes to that at our budget deliberation later on, correct?
That is correct. Would you like me to continue?
Please continue.
The last thing that I want to mention is that you will notice under Appendix 1, so I will take you to Appendix 1 now. You will notice under Appendix 1 that debt and banking charges are lower than in 2020. And we know that we are going to be taking new debt in 2021 because we are going to be borrowing $4 million to finance the public works building. So we would expect that number to be higher. However, there is a couple of reasons why that number is slightly lower. Number one is that 2 of the existing loans are maturing in 2020. So we will not have those payments for those 2 loans. We have, I believe it's 3 loans that have a variable rate. So when interest rates went down, the rate for those loans also went down. So we have made the adjustments to those. And as you can see, it actually is a slight decrease from what we had in 2020. And please keep in mind that for the public works building, we only have 1 payment included in 2021, not 2 payments as normally would be. In 2022, there'll be 2 payments. So the last thing that I want to mention is that, as you can see, if you look at the budget year to year, you will see that there is a decrease of almost $1 million. So we are going from $44 million budget to a $43 million budget. The main reason for that is in 2020, we had a couple of grants that we do not have in 2021. The affordable housing was $381,000. So that makes a good portion of the funding and the expenses in the budget in that year. And also we had the municipal cannabis, we had some funding in 2020 that is no longer gonna be in 2021. 2021. Also, transfers from reserves, as you can see, are actually lower in 2021 than they were in 2020. The main reason is because in 2020, we had a transfer of 442,000 to be able to pay off one of the loans relating to the, I believe it was the Lacombe. So we pay off the loan and we needed to transfer money from the reserve. So that's 442,000. We also had 149,000 transfer relating to the land sales, what I mentioned before, which we do not have in 2021. And some transfer from affordable housing. So at the end, it's about 734,000. That's why you see a smaller budget than in 2020 because of those things. And I believe that that's my report, and I would basically we are recommending that council accept this report as information for consideration during the upcoming 2021 budget deliberations.
Thank you, Senior Manager Reyes. Anything else, Councillor Hoekstra?
I have a few questions. I didn't know we could sort of stop along the way. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gullickson. Back to Appendix 4 and tax-supported reserves. Just remind me, maybe this is not the time to ask it, but how did we get into, how did the reserve, the recreation facilities reserve and the parks and playgrounds reserve get so low? Like, I thought that we do regular contributions to raise reserves. What projects did we do that kind of devastated those reserves?
CEO Galvey?
The short answer is council has not made regular contributions to those reserves. They've been sporadic and fairly nominal over the years. And so I can't speak to the exact decision-making rationale, but there are a number of reserves where previous councils have chosen rather than going to a commercial financing agency to actually sort of self-finance. And so you set up a fake reserve basically, and then draw it down to an immediate overdraft of, in some cases, I think the land reserve is minus $2.5 million or something. 2.2. And then over time, the idea is, in theory, you make regular payments. And so I would, if I'm inferring, I guess, I would guess that the line of thinking in the past is kind of like, well, why would I take a loan out from a bank and pay them interest when we have money sitting in an account over here? You know, you have some positive balance reserves. Why wouldn't we borrow from ourselves? The problem being is that the bank does not allow you to slide on payments, and the bank does not allow you to make your payments based on land sales and do all these things that get you in trouble down the road. And so what we've seen is that self-financing actually, unless you're extremely disciplined over time, leads to this systemic problem where there's an incentive anytime there's pressure to actually just shortchange the repayment of yourself. And you say, oh yeah, balance the budget, but really you haven't, because you're not paying yourself back at the rate that you said you would over time. And so that's what gets you into this problem, and why we have proposed to try and slowly dig ourselves out. I mean, I would love to say we can fix the land one, but at $2.2 million, it really just is not possible until you sell some of that land. And so here we have an opportunity to take care of the parks. There's one that's parks and playground, and what was the other one called?
Recreation facility.
And recreation facility. How those are two different things as that should be on me, but that's one of the things we want to move away from, is that having these negative balance reserves It's artificial financing. It's very hard to explain to residents as to why you're actually doing it that way, why you would have a negative reserve over here and a positive reserve over here. And so we're trying to move away from that. And if you need to borrow from for a project, then do a borrowing bylaw by the MGA, borrow for the project and be completely, what I would call by the book about it. To me, is just a much easier thing down the road to deal with than trying to do self-financing with some of these things.
Thank you. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Sorry, just as a follow-up, and I guess it's because of the playground thing. I visited many playgrounds on the weekend. And then I was explaining to the people I was with that we have this reserve and we keep upgrading playgrounds. But did we know as council at some points when we were upgrading the playgrounds that we didn't actually have money in the reserve to do it? Or is that a whole different story?
That's a whole different story.
Okay, that's what I'm kind of, okay.
It makes perfect sense why you would think that. But because of this problem, you actually just had separate line items for playground replacements that did not go in and out of the reserve.
Okay.
The playground reserve was actually kind of just ignored. Well, it's ugly, so we'll just not look over there. And even the replacement of playgrounds, not only were the reserve contributions sporadic when we look over time, but part of the reason that you're playing catch up in the playgrounds is that I would say there was probably easily 10 years where there was no replacement of playgrounds. And so then you get to replace a bunch in a row. And that's what you're seeing now is that we've done 2 last year at 300,000, 1 this year at 150, and then 2 more next year at 300, I believe.
Not exactly. So 2018, there was 2 done for 300,000. Didn't do any in 2019. We're doing 2 more in 2020. And we proposed an interim Kew Gardens for it. We proposed that as the capital.
So is this a good time to talk about the playground that aren't happening right now?
If you would like more money to be transferred into the reserve.
No, I mean, the ones that are being built, that aren't being built. We'll talk about that in camera maybe. Anything else? Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor, Deputy Mayor Gullickson. So then on Appendix 2, the wages, what library position do you have for $17,000? I'm just curious. I mean, I of course jumped to Mary Seymour and then I went, no, but why do we have a $17,000 position for library? Just curious.
Director Ju.
So we have some custodial work there. And that's a portion of, I believe that's a portion of the LMC staffing budget that gets allocated to the library.
It would be either janitorial or maintenance of the space, one of the two.
Okay, makes sense.
Anybody else? Councillor Jacobson?
Yeah, and I apologize, City Manager Reyes, because I'm sure you stated this, and I'm just still getting my head wrapped around all of this. I've been the last few days trying to figure out how we can have lowered our expenses by almost 800,000, so whatever. So long story short, our goods and services sold, we're proposing about a $400,000 decrease there. Is that, what's that due mostly to again? Is that due to decrease in user fees from facilities and that kind of thing?
Yes, that is correct, Councillor Jacobson. Goods and services has 2 pieces. It has the utility fees that we charge for sale of water and wastewater, solid waste. But there is also fees that we charge as facilities, such as the LMC or the pool would also be included there. There is a decrease, partly because of water, but also partly because of, we are aware that 2021 will not necessarily be a normal year like 2019 was. So we are factoring that in the budget.
And so just to clarify, so that's what you were referring to earlier when you said we buy X amount of water from the commission, but we're not selling that much. And I mean, you had mentioned the CAO already that we're looking into that, but do we have any preliminary thoughts as to what's the reason for that? Is it an engineering issue, or are we leaking out along the way, or are we?
It is very tough for me to say. We have had a number of meetings and have actually an analysis underway to look at that very thing. So possible problems we've identified are problems with the billing software, problems with the meter, large undetected leak, deliberate tampering with the meter, or loss of a major utility customer, or a number of major utility customers. But so far, we have not found the smoking gun, as it were. So I guess, yes, we have about half a dozen ideas of what it could be. No, we have not been able to pinpoint it as of yet, but that work is happening right now.
And if I could follow up.
Certainly.
My second question was just about the grass. So you mentioned that, obviously you've seen a loss of about $700,000 in grass. Is that, just anecdotally, are those like operational grants in the province, or are those one-off grants for various projects?
The grants that we had in 2020 that we do not have in 2021 would be one-time grants. Affordable housing was one of them. We received the funds. We ended up spending them in 2020, so we included them in the budget, and also the offsetting expenses in the budget in 2020. And there was about 60,000 remaining from the municipal cannabis transition program. So that's also in 2020 and not in 2021. One-time grants, the operating grants, total 441,000.
Councillor Connick?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dawson. I guess as Manager Reyes has reiterated a couple times here, so the police budget you have in your binder is not correct. So we are meeting as a commission on Thursday morning to go over a revised budget, and I'm hoping by the afternoon or early Friday you'll have it. I don't know if you can email it to us. It'd be nice to have it before the weekend so we could kind of go over it, but at the very least have a hard copy on Monday, I guess, when we sit down, but.
It's Monday, sorry.
No, the following would be 2 weeks.
Oh, it is 2 weeks, never mind.
Okay.
So I thought it was already.
You're scaring me.
Okay, so we can have some time to get that to us, perfect. I always thought it was next Monday already, but, okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I did sit down with the chief and the chair last week and brought back the feedback from the presentation that council gave, and we will have a revised budget, so this is not correct.
So just to expand on Councillor Connick's, once we know what the changes are, we will be making them, and we will be providing you with updated budgets for Department 21 and Department 15 if 15 is impacted by the change.
Thank you. Councillor Hibbs?
Thank you. Just on that same vein, the Lacombe Waste Commission has also not actually physically passed the budget yet. That's happening later this week, actually. And so I noticed, although it's a slight difference, the estimate that's in here in the binder is actually not matching what I have for documentation for what we're going to be discussing for budget. It's a minor difference, like $6,000, something like that. But who knows what it actually will be, right? So again, that would be another department that potentially could be impacted by decisions outside of this, outside of these chambers.
Thank you. Gio Gotti?
So I apologize, I should have pointed that out. Actually, we got the information from Councillor Hibbs, one of our representatives on the Lacombe Solid Waste Association, Commission. And we did try to include that because that was such a good news story. You're right, it isn't huge, but they are proposing or considering, I believe it's a 5% reduction in rates, which thank you for the work that you have done, and that Mayor Creasy also is one of our representatives, and I know that both of you were instrumental in pushing for that reduced rate, which does help things on our end. So I'm sorry, I'm not sure why we would have it $6,000 off, but we'll double check and make sure it's exact.
But again, that's just assuming that it's passed as presented. So.
Nothing else? All done, Manager Ray? Thank you.
We just need a motion.
Yes, we need a motion to accept this report. Counselor Jacobson?
I'll make the motion to accept the report as presented.
Thank you very much. No further discussion. All those in favor? Approved unanimously, can't say it. And now we'll move on to our capital budget, 5.5.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dalton. Tonight, we are bringing an updated 2021 capital budget for council's consideration. We have removed a couple of projects as per council's direction. Last time we brought the 21 capital budget, so the amendments have been made. And we also postponed one of the projects that we had to 2022 and 2023, and that is for LAPA. So that's, you will see it in the 10-year capital plan, but you no longer see it in the 2021 capital budget. By the way, you have a copy of the 10-year plan in your binders. So all the changes that have been made are factored there. But as of now, we have 41 capital projects for a total of $10.8 million. Most of the funding will be coming from grants. Some of it will be coming from reserves, as you can see on page number 1. And a significant portion will also be funded by borrowing $4 million, as I mentioned, for the public works building. Tonight, basically, we would like to bring it back and seek council's direction in regard to whether council is wanting us to make any further changes, or whether it will be more appropriate to postpone bringing the budget to a future date for adoption. But if council is happy with what they see, then they also have the option to adopt it tonight. But again, you can discuss whichever projects you feel that need discussion. And we'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Councilor Ross?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So I guess my question is to Sue Gowdy. With the process, are you asking for a motion to delete any of these items, or is we to leave it open for discussion on the 26th?
You have the ability to do either. Personally, my preference, I guess, would be to defer discussion until the budget workshops that we've set aside to work through it, and then go through them one project at a time. If that is only a matter of preference for efficiency. Certainly, you're free to discuss.
That's what I'm asking, what my preference would be.
Councilor Connick?
So further to the CEO, your comments, so what is the plan for the workshops? Will day 1 be capital, day 2 operating, or how do you foresee that going?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, it's easiest for us if we can set the capital budget, then we know what the associated operating impacts will be for all those capital expenditures, and then we'll be able to move into the operating budget. I would say if there's significant projects, like one we had anticipated some discussion on, would be the Parkland Regional Library project, for example. Just because there is some other associated impacts if you remove that.
Councilor Hibbs?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I guess my only question would be regarding the Parkland Regional Library renovations. I think it might be prudent, for argument's sake, at a later date, what the cost of demolition would be as opposed to actually renovation, because that is an alternative. And so it would be, if you haven't already gotten it, convenient to calculate that.
Councillor Conick?
Further to Councillor Hibbs' comments, would that be then considered capital or is that an operating expense? Demolition.
Good point.
It would be considered a capital expense, not in regard to capitalizing the asset, but it's a capital expense because it's not normal operations.
Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dodson. So with that, just two comments in mind. Is that kind of come to a conclusion that really it's only if with the possibility of the sale of the property, is it really a land value, not a land building combined value? Is it worth more demolished than just flat out putting it up for sale?
CEO Gowdy?
So that has not been the indication of our appraiser. He has quite strongly said, no, the building has value and it is more valuable as a piece of land with building on it. We actually also have a possible, we're looking at a possible lease arrangement with a local commercial entity, which is a bit too early to share now, but we're hopeful to have some other options for council to consider at some point.
Mayor Creasy, did you want to comment on something?
I think he's been gone for a long time.
Let me pop back.
Oh, did he? Oh, there you
He's muted.
You're on mute.
You're muted, unfortunately.
Try again.
Still muted.
Still can't hear you, bud.
Right.
Third time's. Sorry about that. I think that, yeah, at this time, I think before we need to be allocating any resources to this particular facility, we need to really have some discussions as to the overall area. And if in fact this lease arrangement may come up, I've had an opportunity to talk to several business people here in town and some developers, and the value in that area is in fact the land, but on its own, I don't know that it's going to realize the potential that anybody is hoping for. And I think it's going to have to come with some additional property associated with it. So with that in mind, I think that it would be throwing good money after bad to allocate those funds towards capital on this building at this time, and that we should strongly consider other options.
Well, and those options can come forward at our deliberations on the 26th. Is that not correct for this building, or would that be too soon even?
For the commercial lease.
Well, no, not for the lease, but for other options for the building itself. As far as demolition is what you're talking about, correct?
Yes, I believe we can. I believe we can get a high level cost for demolition prior to the meeting. So
the 26th would be the time to discuss that when we have the numbers. Okay. Councillor Conick?
Yeah, I guess you kind of answered that. I was just going to suggest that we should probably just take the 525 out altogether, have that discussion on the 26th and see what comes of it then. But at this, I don't know, I guess we can leave it.
I would say leave it, because there's going to be a,
There's
going to be some sort of, somewhere.
Councillor Ross?
I was thinking, Deputy Mayor, I was just going to make the motion to delete it now if that was the wishes of a major one for CO for administration purpose too, because I don't hear any consideration for renovation. So I'm going to go ahead and make the motion that the former Parkland Regional Library building renovations be deleted from the 2021 budget.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion regarding that? Councillor Hibbs?
Sorry, I'm going to argue against that and I will be voting against it. I think it's a bit premature I am interested in the idea of demolition, but I don't know what that cost looks like. I do have interest in accommodating the Parks Department in the separate garage portion, so I think that is included in that dollar value. I'm not really sure what the point is of deleting it at this point. I think it would be better to have a more fulsome discussion on it. So I guess it's my comments, and I will be voting against it because of that.
Anyone else? Any other comments? I also would be voting against the motion. I think we should leave it until the 26th when we have more information, just so we can make an informed decision. Or Creasy, did you want to comment on that, or are you good?
I think everybody knows what my feelings are for that particular building. However, I have no problem with leaving it until the 26th for further discussion. But if it is helpful to administration, have it removed now, I would certainly be in favor of that. But I'm willing to discuss it certainly on the 26th as well.
Any advantage?
It makes no, unless I'm missing something, I can't imagine it making a difference for us at this.
Team Manager Reyes, go ahead.
It can be, for sure, it can be deferred until the 26th. One thing that I would say is that if council needs more time to address the former Parkland Regional Library building, they always are able to put this item on hold, meaning that you're not forgetting about it. You can pass the budget without that item at some point, and you can always approve that as a standalone project, like you do with other capital projects. Sometimes during the year, that's what you do. So you always can do that, because if you need more time, you may be able to. CEO Gowdy can correct me.
We don't do that here. I don't believe in that.
Oh.
I don't think it's a good idea. It is possible. Senior Manager Reyes is right. That is absolutely within the legislation. And so if there was a need for a one-off capital project, we could do it. But I think if you go down that route of mid-year approvals, you start to have just an open, it becomes open reign. And so I'm a big believer in adhering to the budget timelines. So he's correct, but we haven't done that here.
Thank you. Councillor Connick?
So for my own clarification, we keep talking about how we're going to talk about it on the 26th. Are we going to talk about it during the regular council meeting? Or are we going to talk about it when we talk budget during the day? I'm assuming it'll be during the day.
Budget during the day.
Okay, because, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor then to remove that item from the budget. Ross, can you repeat it exactly for us, please?
Certainly, Councillor Ross made the motion that the former Parkland Regional Library renovations be deleted from the 2021 budget.
Thank you. No further comments. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's Councillor Ross and Mayor Creasy. Opposed? Thank you. Everyone else was opposed. Any other items to be looked at?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Garrison. I forgot to mention that another project that has been updated is the City Hall renovations. At the previous council meeting, council wanted some changes to be done to that project. So we have removed the cost in 2023, and we have increased the cost in 2021 by 150,000. And we have some notes on page number 2 that relate to that. I just wanted to make sure that I indicate that.
Thank you. Councillor Hoekstra?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would like to make this motion, because I feel like they're just discussing stuff that we'll discuss then. That council direct any desire, we have no minutes, that we takes this 2021 capital budget as information and return it for discussion on October 26th.
Thank you. Sounds perfect. Any other discussion regarding this item? Seeing none, I call the question then. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Oh, Council Conick?
Sorry, Deputy Mayor Alex, I meant to bring it up for the operating budget, and I totally forgot until just now. Has there been any changes? We haven't discussed it as a council, just sort of touched on it a little bit. And I know the council remuneration committee has not met yet. But at one time we were talking about the mayor's position becoming a full-time position. Now, if that's to happen, it would happen after the next election, but there would still be 2 months in next year's budget that would be affected by that. And I guess I just totally forgot till right now that hasn't been factored in yet. And I don't know if it should. Maybe we could just, I guess we would talk it as a council when we talk budget, but then if you could bring something to that would be reflective of that. So that we know what that number would look like if in fact that is something we want to do. Because we would have to address it before the budget is passed.
Yes, now, typically, I believe that the plan, and I haven't looked at it for a bit, I'm sorry, but I believe that the remuneration policy says that council will review it in the last year of their term for implementation with the new term, which lines up with what you're talking about. And so we can absolutely identify an amount and hold that kind of to the side for council to make this. I think there's a survey component of it, and then council will adopt the new rate, if you choose to do so, and possibly a new structure or type of full-time thing. And then we'll have the money set aside for 2021. So yes, we'll have that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to 6.1, administrative reports. CEO Gowdy, do you have a report for us tonight?
Yes, I do. And I'll just report, which says time of writing this, there were 5 active cases. Of course, I've updated COVID-19. Of course, I've updated you tonight that has changed. So a spot of good news. There is a recent announcement of the municipal operating support transfer funding from provincial government. This is a combined funding program from the provincial and federal government under the Safe Restart Agreement. Under this program, the city of Lacombe is eligible for up to $1.5 million in funding to replace lost revenue and increased expenses that were incurred due to COVID-19. All funds must be accounted for, used for the purpose identified in the program guidelines, and spent by March 31st, 2021. So we are working with some of our partnering agencies, including the Lacombe Police Service, to account for as much lost revenue and increased expenses as we can to access ideally the full $1.5 million. We have a tentative agreement on the draft municipal cost sharing agreement with the ICF committee. So Councillor Hibbs, Mayor Creasy, and I met, and a number of administrative staff, I should say, met with Lacombe County to talk about the annual transfer to account for shared services. And I think we have 99% of the way there. There's just a couple of details to finalize. There's an update on the Lincoln Park playground, which is going a little bit slower than we had hoped. But I understand it's on track for completion by the end of the month. And that is all we have.
Okay. Any questions for the, Councillor Conick?
So as far as the municipal operating support transfer is concerned, you don't have a hard number yet, it's just up to 1.5, or is that the hard number?
That is the hard number. I think it's like 492,000 and
Okay.
change or something.
Well, that is encouraging. It's good news.
Councillor Jacobson?
So if we access that, that's going to dramatically impact the operating budget then, correct?
Yes, it could. I don't think it should. My recommendation is that it should not affect your thinking though. The budget you set this year will be the base for the budget you set the next year. And as much as a shot in the arm of 1.5 million or 1 million or whatever it may be is great, it doesn't fix your long-term revenue issues or your long-term expense issues. So yes, I think that it can definitely buffer any issues you have and could even be used, you could use it to buffer the tax rate this year and future years. You could transfer all this money into your operating reserve and use it as a tax stabilization reserve. I really recommend against that. That would be artificially lowering the tax rate increase that you actually need to look at this year and it would only defer the problem down the road and it would be a bigger problem for future councils. So I guess my answer is yes, definitely it can make the budget easier. It is a one-time transfer. It is not something that can be relied on going forward. And so I think you should set your expenses based only on those repeatable, reliable, sustainable revenue sources, not.
I wasn't suggesting that. I'm just saying if we're burning furniture, it's nice to get more furniture.
Yeah, well, and I'd like to comment also, it seems like we talk about the lost revenues. We've been talking about the lost revenues based on COVID, and this is offsetting those numbers, right? So they're gonna hopefully disappear. As they're not gonna be lost revenues anymore, is that not correct? Because they're offsetting it with this one-time.
Yes.
Like our LMC losses and our arena and pool losses and all that will be part of this 1.5 million.
Yes, it's tough to just say all your losses though, because if you look at actually
We generated surplus.
say the pool last year for 2020 versus 2019, you actually probably won't see a larger loss in the pool because of actions that were taken to limit the expenses. And so.
But you're looking at lost revenues.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't need to look at the other side. We need to look at our lost revenues.
Lost revenues and increased expenses.
Yeah.
I would say, I guess pragmatically, we're gonna try and make sure we access the full $1.5 million. And if we do that, I think that overall it will be a net positive to the city if you take into account COVID and this. Like I think the 1.5 million that has been made available to the city, thankfully, thanks to decisions made by council, is actually more money than is probably strictly needed, but we won't know that until we do the full accounting. But that's what I'm expecting, is that you will be there will be more funds available than you will actually have lost.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Deputy. So I guess my question for that would be, does it work going forward? Because for example, when we did experience losses with the pool, for example, or the arena, we actually shut the facility down. We laid off staff, like there were mitigating, like offsetting. Now going forward, for example, assuming that we don't get a second wave that shuts everything down again, your numbers are going to be down. Like you're not going to have people going to the LMC like you have in the past. You're not going to be people utilizing the arena and the pool like they have in the past. So I would suspect and argue that we probably are going to see greater losses potentially this year because it's enough to stay open, but it's not really enough to stay open. So you are going, so I guess when I look at this 1.5 million, I don't necessarily look at it as in recouping from what's happened. It's more of a matter of this restart, as it talks about how we're now open, but we're operating at a, whatever it is, 50%. Do you know what I mean? So user fees, et cetera, are not anywhere near what they would normally be, and that has an effect. So I guess that would be my question is that a fair way to look at it, or is it meant to only go to mitigate what happened in the past?
So you're absolutely correct that your pool, for example, will likely lose more money or require a greater subsidy from the city to run in 2021 than in 2020 because of exactly probably your capacity is going to be 50% or less, but your operating needs, your expenses are still 90 or 95% of what they once were. You still need lifeguards. The limit of the program is costs incurred to March 31st of 2021. So it doesn't go forward indefinitely. There is still a number of reporting requirements that are yet to be determined by the province, and so I can't say with certainty how those declarations and how that accounting will take place. For example, in the program guidelines, they've talked about lost building permits that you would have otherwise seen. Well, that's very subjective. And so Mauricio and I laughed and we said, oh, there's a big, remember that? I thought we were going to get a $50 million permit, but that damn COVID. There you go, $1.5 million. And so if it's that easy, if it's just a declaration, then you're going to get the full 1.5 million for sure. If it's a highly in-depth financial reporting requirement, that's where I actually think you would have a challenge demonstrating $1.5 million of negative financial impacts due to COVID. Mm-hmm. So until those rules come out, we don't really know.
Well, and to your point, Councillor Hibbs, is that like we don't know when it's going to end. We have no idea. March is a number that you just talked about, and so we'll have at least 3 months in this budget period that could be affected by COVID. And so do we go back to 2019 and look at that budget? That was a non-COVID budget and base our numbers on that instead of 2020.
In many places we did.
Yeah, we would have to.
Sometimes the expenses still kind of matched.
So I think it's nice to have, but it's not going to totally cover off everything right now. Any other questions for our administrator on his report? No? Okay, we'll move on to our next item. Can we accept all these as one item, right? As information. Or Councillor mailbox, we have a couple items in there. Any comments on those? C.O. Gowdy.
So when this request appeared in the council committee meeting mailbox at a recent meeting, council had asked for a couple of follow-up questions. So we have some additional information. We did talk to the vice president of the condo association, who has given us, I'll summarize the information here, but why is the request coming to the city now? The condo is looking for cost savings. They have had some, like many entities have had recent cash shortages and are looking to minimize costs. So there's a review of their expenses that's happening right now. This is one area that they looked at. Maybe there would be an opportunity to reduce costs. Right now, they're using a firm from Sylvan Lake. Sanding typically happens 3 to 4 times a season, and the clearing happens. There's private sidewalks and driveways that are cleared with shovels and small snowblowers every snowfall. That would not change, that would continue. And their contractor uses a Bobcat 2 to 3 times a season to clear the road, stockpiling snow on the east side of the condo property. We don't have a fee. We haven't developed a per clearing sanding rate using Alberta road builders rates. Okay, with council's direction. Our recommendation at this time is that we not approve the request for snow clearing services on the following basis. The residents have a need for clearing frequency far in excess of what the city provides on local roads. City cannot provide snow clearing services for all private residential roads such as Beardsley Crescent, 76 and 78 Terrace Heights Drive, some of the mobile home parks within the city without additional resources. Windrowing snow on the access road means large stockpiles on the front lawns of few residents due to the layout of the driveways. Hauling snow may be possible, but it would be an inequitable service standard compared to the standard provided to the neighboring Granite Cove residents who would be receiving traditional snow clearing methods. And lastly, that the city sands the condo. And part of the request was also the city sanding the condo access road where Granite Cove Road is sanded. This is a single truck and driver, so it's much less work compared to the snow clearing. There is still the slippery slope concept for another condo requesting the same or other commercial entity or something. But certainly it's quite a bit less effort to have the truck go over. So I believe that provides the responses to the questions we had. If there's others, I would be happy to take those.
Councilor Koenig.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As far as the other letter goes, was there, what was administration's evaluation of that letter?
The other letter is the one from Elizabeth Lake Drive. That's the one. What was your question again?
Well, the individual who wrote the letter was looking for a little bit of the city's Parks Department getting involved and maybe doing some maintenance there.
So I guess I would, and you and I had a discussion of this earlier, so I will hopefully be consistent with what I had said there. When I look back, I believe that the original request was operational involvement of a councillor related to the mowing of a park space behind his house. I think that that was imprudent at the time, and that to go back and have the same councillor now request a different operational activity on the park near his house continues to offer unusual access to the operational decision-making of the city of Lacombe to a single individual. However, as far as actual work, it's a few extra hours per mow. So it is an incremental amount of work, but it's certainly not something that would hamper our ability to provide service generally within the city.
Any other comments regarding this letter? Councillor Hoopstraw.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So are you looking for direction? Is that what you're saying? No? Taking this information.
Same as with the other letter, you're fine with you don't need direction from us for the other?
Correct. Now, to be clear, I am saying I don't require direction because I believe that the current practice is acceptable. If you do not believe that the current practice is acceptable, please provide us direction and we will happily alter.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I was just going to reiterate, I think these are included in our package as information because they were addressed to all of council rather than a single member of council. But it is up to us to decide that we want to give direction to administration. And I don't think that administration's asking for anything. So I'm not prepared to give any direction. I'm quite happy with the response that, would be relatively standard and expected.
So are you making the motion then?
I'm not making the motion.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Councillor Gulson. So just to reiterate, his initial notice of motion to discontinue that grass was for what reason? Oh, sorry.
I was going to say I have to go back. I believe he has given the original reason. and does have a rationale as to why things have changed at this time. since then. And I believe it is to do with the establishment of the vegetation, so there's no concern of the muddiness that existed before.
Okay, that brings us to the end of that mailbox. Can I get a motion to accept that as information?
Oh, it's. Do we not include the other
Do
council
you want
reports
to, the council reports also?
as far as information?
Yeah, sure. That's good with me. So we'll move into council reports then. Mayor Creasy, do you have a report? I do not have one. Councilor Ross?
Sorry.
No? Councilor Hoekstra?
No.
And Councilor Jacobson, do you have a report? Councilor Hicks? Yeah.
Mine was included. If anybody has any questions, I don't really have anything in particular that I want to point out, so.
And thank you. And Councilor Connick?
And my report is there as well. I would just highlight that you'll see now that I'm within the police commission meeting, we're getting totals now for members responding to mental health and check on welfare complaints. Naturally with COVID, we're seeing an increase there. So that's just some new reporting we're doing. And that was it. That's all I have.
What complaints do you get from COVID? Like to require police service?
The COVID complaints, so citizen will come in and say there's a gathering of too many people.
Oh, okay, so.
That's kind of the thing. They're not, that's all. And no charges have actually been related. They might go and investigate, but there hasn't been anything that's any charges related to COVID gatherings to date.
So I've heard that if an individual has traveled outside of the country, that they're being tracked somehow, I assume, for whatever reason, and the police service is checking that they're being isolating themselves. So I've heard from a few people that they have.
That could be, I don't know.
That has taken place.
I've heard that as well.
Yeah. So, Councillor Connick, sure, I noticed there's an increase in, there seems to be an increase in traffic patrol, is that correct?
They're definitely stepping up.
Yeah, and I appreciate it, and I noticed they were in the school zone this afternoon, and that was very good. Thank you. Now, we have a motion to accept.
I'll make that motion to accept.
Thank you very much, Councillor Connick. Motion to accept is information. All those in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. Next item is 7.1, adoption of our September 28th council meeting minutes. Everybody had a chance to review? Councilor Higgs?
Thank you. I did not see any errors, so I would move that they be accepted or adopted as presented.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Mayor Creasy, did you have a comment? I see your back. Thank you. All those in favor? Unanimous? Now, item number 8.1 is a notice of motion that administration prepare a land use bylaw amendment by adding detached dwelling as a permitted or discretionary use to the R3 zoning, and that is being brought forward by myself. And that will be voted upon October 26th. Yes, you want
I think just support council, if you wouldn't mind, I would give just a really brief to make sure everyone knows what this is.
Certainly.
So the R3 zoning is the mobile home zoning within the new land use bylaw. Currently, within that zoning, detached dwelling, so a stick-built house, if you will, is neither a permitted nor discretionary use. So in certain neighborhoods, such as the Hearthstone neighborhood, a resident would actually not be in a position, if they were to remove their mobile home, they would have to replace it with a mobile home. They would not be in a position to apply or get a permitted use to build a home on that serviced city lot. That will be discussed at your upcoming meeting.
Thank you. And I believe that's everything tonight, unless you have, yes, unless you have anything else, we need a motion to go into camera. Thank you, Councillor Hibbs.
I'll make that motion.
Did you want to take a break? Did you want to vote on the motion? Follow-up motion to.
Do you want to vote
Oh, yes. Why would I want to vote on that? All those in favor?